Have you ever wondered about the idea of if Subaru was trained by a dragon, specifically Skiadrum from the world of Fairytail? Well, in today's What If story, we'll be covering a world where Fairytail's future had gone on to a modern-day present, where Subaru Natsuki is a shadow dragon slayer, trained by Skiadrum and the descendant of Gajiel Red Fox. But if you guys are interested and enjoy the story, please support your boy down in the comments, and also, a little like button. Just, it only takes like 3 seconds, just like this did. But enough of that. Let's get right into the story. Enjoy the binge! All right, we're going to be getting into, like I do with most of my series, the intro of how everything is being placed, what's going on with the basis of the setting. So, as the What If says, this is the story of what if Subaru was a shadow dragon slayer. Now, dragon slayers, for those of you who aren't aware, are from the series called Fairytail. I highly recommend you go watch it, or at least some parts of it, or like some explanation videos, so you can understand exactly what's going on, what I'm saying, and how everything's relating. But going forward, I'll be assuming that everyone here knows about Fairytale magic and how it works versus ReZero, and I might explain a few things, but I digress. We're going to get started by explaining Subaru's connection and how he's become a shadow dragon slayer. First off, the world of ReZero, might I clarify, not the fantasy world of ReZero. I mean the world where Subaru originally comes from, Earth. The Earth that we're more well aware of when Subaru walks out of that gas station, that like Lawson's food place, and he walks out and just gets teleported. That world. His original world is where the story is going to begin. This world is actually the future of Fairytale. Hundreds of years after Natsu, Urza, Lucy, and Gray had ever been alive is when Subaru Natsuki would be born, in an eastern nation very similar to Japan. We have a short flashback to when the dragons had first left Natsu and the other dragon slayers' bodies. You see, after Acnologia was defeated and Zeref was vanquished as well, a majority of the dark forces within the world of Fairytale had disappeared. Of course, there were still a few minor threats, and here and there that would be handled within the 100-year quest, the continuation of Fairytale, but after that, the world began to shift into an era of peace, and magic became less used, as magic shifted more from battle to the focus on building of technology. The guilds would begin to break apart, Fairytale dying out and its descendants moving on. We now move 300 to 400 years in the future, where the descendant of Gajiel and Levi, which is Subaru's father's bloodline, would come into play. It has been hundreds of years since the dragons had left the original dragon slayers' bodies, and as their magic had disappeared, it had begun to reform. Skiadrum, that being Rogue's shadow dragon, being the very first dragon to revive. Skiadrum would open his eyes as he wakes up for the first time in hundreds of years, having his entire soul and mana now collected back together as he had now been revived. It was clear that Acnologia had been defeated and their faith in their dragon slayers had been true, but as he looked around, he could sense basically no one with any substantial magic. That is, except for one person. A young boy that he'd come to find being Subaru Natsuki. Of course, Skiadrum had looked for Igneal and the other dragons, but it appears that none of them had reformed as he had, having no idea if it would be another year or 10 before they would actually appear again. Skiadrum, noticing the only person in this world with any substantial amount of magic being Subaru, even his magic being dwindlesome compared to the power that their dragon slayers had once had. As Skiadrum was watching Subaru over a couple years, though other dragons had still yet to reform, Subaru would be about 7 or 8 years old. When Subaru would be coming home one day, Skiadrum watching over him as usual, just to entertain himself at this point really, Subaru would drop his backpack as the door in front of him would be held open. Someone had robbed his house. Subaru would run through the open door, calling out his mother and father's name. Mom! Mom! Dad! Where are you? Subaru opening doors after the other. Mom! Mom, please! Dad, please! Please, please! As he opens the door, the final door in his house, his own room, he would find them. Both of his parents laying on the ground motionless, just a pool of blood. Subaru would fall to his knees, his hands in the blood, as he'd be shaking, having no idea what to do. Suddenly, he'd turn around as he hears a rustling sound, as a blade's about to come towards Subaru's eye. Suddenly, a black shadow would appear, as the knife would be sent blasted away, as the robber would turn and run, screaming about what the hell that was. Subaru would be shattered. A neighbor, having already called the police after hearing some incident occur in their neighbor's house, the police officers would come to find Subaru sitting by his parents' corpses, their eyes lifeless. With no relatives or anyone to take Subaru, the plan was just to put him into the foster system and sell off the house. It's at this point that Skiadron would intervene, having regretted what he had done by not protecting them when Subaru was at school and just following him instead. It's at this point when Subaru would be taken away, Subaru sitting in his room, already shattered, just looking down at the floor, now cleaned up with no blood, but he could still see it in his mind. Subaru would hear a tapping on his window. Huh? Subaru would get up, walking towards the window, opening it slowly, as there's nothing there. Suddenly, Subaru would be picked up by the back of his shirt. As Subaru starts screaming, he'd fly away. As Skiadron would take Subaru to a far-off location so that way he wouldn't be disrupted by any humans, and that way Subaru could see him in his full form. Subaru's voice would have gone hoarse from screaming. He had just been disappeared, spirited away. His neighbors would never even know what had happened to him, as he then opens his eyes, falling to the ground as dust then waves into his nose, causing him to cough. What was that? Subaru would turn around, his eyes still being in that dark, empty place, as he then sees it. A dragon, Skiadron would say, as Subaru would just cover his mouth with both hands, being terrified. Are you gonna eat me? Subaru would say. These first words would cause Skiadron to burst out laughing, remembering when he had raised Rogue the first time. This being now his second chosen dragon slayer. No, I'm not gonna eat you. Oh, well, that's good. Not like I have much to live for anyway. After Subaru had calmed down a little, Skiadron would offer a proposal to Subaru. You know that man? That man? Subaru would say. Yes, the one who murdered your parents and got away. Subaru would remember the day, as his fist would curl up in with rage. How do you know about that? He'd say. The dragon would snicker seemingly, as Skiadron would then offer a option for Subaru. In reality, Skiadron feels terrible, having basically let Subaru's parents die. He had never intended that, but now this was seemingly the only way he could make amends. He'd give Subaru the power to free himself from that hopeless world, just as how the orphans of the original Dragon Slayers were then given the power themselves to change their fates. This was the only thing Skiadron had ever known that he could do for a human child. This is where Skiadron would offer Subaru a helping hand. How would you feel about learning how to use magic? What? Magic? You're joking, right? Only babies would believe in... Skiadron would turn, taking a little whistle as he blows, with just a single bit of power from a shadow dragon roar, decimating the side of the mountain as Subaru's mouth would be aghast. And you think I can do that? He'd say. Skiadron would then seemingly snicker again, saying, Of course you can, even with that pitiful amount of magic you have now. If I train you... Subaru would gulp, feeling the urge for revenge inside of him, as he would then agree for Skiadron to train with him. When the police and child services had arrived at Subaru's house, he'd be gone, as if he had never been there to begin with, his stuff all sitting there being the only proof of his existence, as Subaru Nautski would disappear for the next 10 years. Something I feel I should mention before we go into this little time skip here is that, unlike the original Dragon Slayers who were on a time crunch and had to train the Dragon Slayers quickly, Acnologia is gone. Like, he'd been killed by Natsu years ago. There's no threat for Skiadron to really face at this point, besides just living his life as a dragon and existing in the world. There was no real point in dragons or magic existing anymore. So he really had all the time he needed to train Subaru in everything, to the point where Subaru has several abilities completely mastered that the other Dragon Slayers would never have until the end of the series. A few other things I like to cover for people who would be commenting this is why Subaru's parents are dead, and that's for a very good reason, in that something that I really wanted Subaru to experience is this parental loss that all the other Dragon Slayers had to deal with. Natsu losing Igneal, all of the Dragon Slayers losing their dragons. That was that sense of loss, and it's also what drove them to actually become stronger wizards and mages. And since Subaru has parents, he's not exactly like the other Dragon Slayers in that way. And so instead of him losing his dragon and getting a new human family, it's the other way around. So Subaru lost his human side and now was trained by a dragon, raised with his father being Skiadrum. And as you guys know, this would be where things are going to get a little interesting. Subaru is now 17 years old, and as he's walking into town, Subaru had decided that it was time for him to get some new clothes. Skiadrum telling Subaru that he's fine in what he has, but Subaru disagreeing, saying that his shoes were too small and everything was torn up and tattered. Subaru deciding that with the money he had in his pocket, he might be able to sort something out, with him inevitably being turned down as he decides to go to that very same Lawson's that he would have in the original timeline, looking like a hobo, with his hair long and everything being tattered. Subaru would walk into the Lawson's just looking at all the stuff he had missed, seeing all the manga updates that he had never been able to follow on, as he smiles thinking about what he used to do. Subaru deciding on if it's time to go after that guy, not realizing how strong he had already become. As Subaru thinks if he should bring anything for his dad, Skiadrum, he would walk out of the store and onto the street, as he'd suddenly feel a wave of tiredness. I swear I got enough sleep last... Huh? Subaru would suddenly open his eyes as he felt magic surrounding him. What the hell was that? He'd say, as Subaru opens his eyes and turns around to find that he had been transported. Or what he thought was teleported back in time, since Skiadrum had told him about the old days of this world, the true history of his own world, that of the Dragon Slayers and Acnologia. Subaru would think that he had been sent back in time. Dad? Subaru even now would still have that hobo vibe as everyone's giving him a wide berth, not knowing where this guy came from or why he's not in some slum somewhere where he belongs. Subaru would enter into one of the demi-human cafes as he's about to get thrown out, Subaru in this version being far more aggressive, as he then starts a fight in the bar, knocking out several demi-humans and having the guards called on him. I'll take you all on, he'd say. I feel that it's appropriate here to explain some of Subaru's abilities, starting off with the overarching being Shadow Dragon Slayer magic, alongside the anti-dragonization that Skiadrum had used on Subaru's soul, so that learning this magic wouldn't turn him into a dragon, like what had happened to the prehistoric Dragon Slayers, like Urza's mom. He had also taught him Shadow Dragon Slayer magic, a magic which allows Subaru to transform the physiology of his body into that of a shadow dragon, transforming into a shadow that can't be touched by unmagical means, basically meaning that he can't be damaged by physical attacks. Subaru is also able to fade himself into shadows to move faster, dodge efficiently, and use surprise attacks. However, if Subaru is caught while he's tangible, or from another person who can use shadow magic, he's then vulnerable to those physical attacks. The shadows produced by Shadow Dragon Slayer magic are able to be utilized in several different ways, allowing for high levels of adaptability. For example, he can condense them, use them in freeform, mold them into the shapes of weapons, take on the properties of that chosen shape, along with the other basic types of abilities that all Dragon Slayers share. In this specific case where he's beating on these demi-humans, he would choose to use a Shadow Dragon Slash. Subaru would cover his arms in shadows as he punches them, hitting them with magic as they get sent sprawling, knocking them out as they begin to call the guards. Oh, I better get out of here, he'd say, as Subaru would crash out the window, running off into an alleyway. Subaru sitting down those same stairs would then be now leaped upon by those three goons. Hey there, buddy. You sure you don't got anything useful on ya? I mean, not that you would, since you look poor as dirt. Subaru would sigh, looking up. I don't have time to talk with you. Subaru would be about to fade out into the shadows, but one of them would grab his arm. Hey, it's not nice to talk to your new friends like that, is it there, huh? I have no time for weaklings, Subaru would say. I'm trying to find how to get out of here. It seems like I stepped on some sort of trap or something. Either that or someone drugged me. There's no way an eclipse gate still exists in that world, right? So this has to be the past. Or did something else happen, Subaru would be thinking. Anyway, I have to contact... Before anything else could happen, this would be when Emillia would come calling out. Hey, leave that poor boy alone, she'd say. But I'm not poor, Emillia would come charging in a puck, as Subaru would realize that this is magic, this being the first time that he'd seen anyone besides Skiadrum or himself even use magic. Is that magic, he'd be saying? As Subaru would stand up, Emillia would tell him to get down, using ice, well, fire magic in ReZero, but the opposite to make ice. Through Puck, she would attack the three bandits, hitting them and causing them to be crying on their knees, begging for mercy. Emillia would ask if they had seen anyone who had come by carrying her insignia, showing the size of it, as they had promised that they hadn't seen it. Subaru would raise his hand saying he'd seen it, as just before those guys had shown up, this little girl with a red scarf had been carrying something like that. She had jumped over this wall right here. Really? Thanks, Emillia would say, as she starts charging past them, about to climb over the wall. Before she can get out, Subaru would grab her leg, saying, Subaru would say, not so fast, I actually have a few questions for you. Puck would turn back with demon laser eyes at Subaru, saying he should better let go of his daughter, as Subaru would be reminded of Skiadrum. Subaru would smirk, saying, the cat's her dad? Well, if you knew my dad, he's a threat. Before Subaru could finish anything, Emillia would kick Subaru in the face, saying she would usually offer some help, but she's really busy and also doesn't have any money on her. Sorry. Subaru would take emotional damage, saying, I'm not poor, okay? And she's gone. Suddenly, Subaru would use his Shadow Dragon Slayer magic, as he fades into the shadows and starts moving after Emillia, catching up to her in a matter of seconds as she turns the corner and sees Subaru standing leaning against the wall. Puck would smirk, saying, this guy's not anything ordinary, is he? As Subaru would smile, saying, nope, I'm Subaru Natsuki. Nice to meet you, and I have a few questions. Emillia would be a bit irked by this and annoyed, and she then asks Subaru what he could possibly want to know, as Subaru would offer Emillia an exchange. I'll help you find that insignia if you'll tell me where I am and what year it is. Emillia would offer her hand before she receives Subaru's, and then offers a elbow bump, saying she wouldn't want to catch any of his germs. Subaru would be both, again, offended and also feel even worse about his appearance, saying, is it really that bad? Considering he only had himself and Skiadrum to compare to, he thought he had been doing pretty well. It's with his agreement here that Subaru and Emillia would then go after Felt, with Subaru and Emillia eventually finding that little girl, helping her as well as getting her back with her mother, and a variety of odd tasks, Subaru being entranced by Emillia, seeing how kind she was. So why did you kick me in the face again? I told you I was busy, and you grabbed my leg. You deserved it. That was sexual harassment, you know. Subaru would sigh. I don't even want to... Whatever. Anyway, I don't think this is getting us anywhere. Subaru would think about the stories Skiadrum had told him as he comes to realize it. Wait, whatever your name is. Oh wait, actually, what is your name? You didn't tell me, I told you mine. Oh, it's, Satella, she'd say. Oh, well, it's nice to meet you, Satella. Anyway, basically, I have a quick question for you. Where do you think people who steal things live? Emillia would question this for a second before thinking, a politician's house? Funny joke, but no, actually, I was about to say the slums, but that's a pretty good one too, Subaru would say. Anyway, Subaru would say, I think we should go check the slums. Maybe there's some sort of trading post that this little kid would have sold it to, if it's especially something that pretty invaluable as you describe it. Oh, that's a good idea, Emillia would say, as Emillia and Subaru would then walk, trudging their way over to the slums, where Old Man Raj and the trading house is. It's here inside where both Subaru and Emillia would run into Felt, who just had snagged and brought the insignia. Huh. Subaru would say. Now, just not gonna brag, but who was right again? Shut up, Subaru. Right again. Haters gonna hate. Anyway, Subaru would say, I'll be taking the insignia back for this young lady here. Come on, hand it over. This would be when Raj and Felt would be prepared to fight Subaru and Emillia, when suddenly a knocking would happen at the door. Can you just hold on a second, Oma and Raj would say. I think our buyer's here. There's no need to buy anything, Subaru would say. We're just gonna be taking it. Oma and Raj would sigh, carrying his club, as he's thinking about swinging it at Subaru, but would decide to wait. As he opens the door, Old Man Raj would have a flash come at him, as he barely blocks the strike of the blade with a club. As Elsa Granhirt, the Bowel Hunter, enters into the room. Huh, I swear I could have sliced clean through that. I guess I must be a little rusty today. Subaru would immediately recognize this threat, as he turns, telling Emillia to get behind him. Puck also would appear, telling Emillia to listen to Subaru, as Subaru's ready for a fight. Felt would turn, trying to escape with the insignia, as Emillia would go after Felt, now running off into the slums. Elsa would then turn around, trying to go after the insignia. Ah, not so fast there, little missy, Subaru would say. You still have me to deal with, and this old guy, I guess. Come on, give me your best shot. Needless to say, this Subaru is incredibly cocky with his abilities. Since Skiadrum had raised him, and you can really feel his Gajiel from his old great-grandpa coming through. Anyway, Subaru would be ready for a fight. Also, Grandeur would lick her blade, saying that she's ready to take on any bowels. Even the insides of a dirty street rat like you might be a beautiful red. Ugh, that sounds creepy, Subaru would say. Well, whatever, bring it on. Elsa would charge for it at blitzing speeds, as Subaru would smirk, as he just stands there. The blade would cut right through Subaru, as she would realize it immediately. He's intangible, right? Subaru would say, as only shadows would be cut through the blade. Subaru using his Shadow Dragon Slayer to make himself intangible to physical attacks. Elsa would turn around, moving fast as lightning, trying to carve Subaru again, as Subaru would then use a Shadow Dragon Roar, screaming at Elsa. A blast of shadows would be ejected towards her, as she crashes through the back wall of the house. As Elsa pulls herself up, suddenly Subaru would be behind her. Didn't you say that my insides were a beautiful red? Well, let's check yours, he'd say, as he then pushes his fist through Elsa's back, almost appearing through the other side with a Shadow Dragon Slash, coating his fist in shadows, as she'd cough up blood, feeling her spine crack, as Elsa Granhirt would get sent flying again. He's way too strong. I have to get out of here. Subaru would be a Shadow Dragon, and a Shadow Dragon never lets its prey escape. As Subaru's about to go for the kill, this vengeful Subaru that had been raised by a dragon without the moral implications of humanity, of the modern time, he'd be ready to kill Elsa Granhirt, when suddenly a blade would come between them. I heard someone had started a fight in town. After following their tracks, I never expected it to be someone looking like you. We would see in front of us Reinhardt, as Reinhardt would block Subaru's killing blow from the attack on Elsa. Subaru would pull back, his senses immediately picking up the danger that Reinhardt possesses, as he holds both hands up, smiling, saying, Come on there, Mr. Knight, I was just playing around, you know. Reinhardt would touch the legendary sword at his side, realizing that he could actually pull it out of the sheath, but Subaru wasn't attacking him. It appears you're worthy of the legendary sword. I guess we'll have to hold this off for another day, since this is the Bowel Hunter. I'll be taking her in, he'd say, as Reinhardt would turn, trying to take Elsa. As he goes to take Elsa, she'd be gone. See, I told you, you shouldn't have been going after me, you let her get away. This would be annoying to Reinhardt, as he then tells Subaru to wait there if he doesn't want to die. Subaru would smirk, realizing Reinhardt's strength and knowing that he probably can't win this. It's at this point when Emillia would come back carrying Felt and her insignia, Felt punching and kicking all the way, as she would then toss Felt to Reinhardt, saying he can take this criminal in as well, who'd stolen her stuff. Reinhardt, realizing after seeing Felt had been holding the insignia, and just as he had saw in the original timeline, would take Felt in and say goodbye to Subaru, turning and telling Subaru it would do well for him to change his appearance, as he then disappears. Huh, he was pretty pissed at you. You know, that's the strongest knight in the order, right? He's the strongest knight of all Lagunica. What did you do to him? Emillia not having seen how strong Subaru was. Oh, and also you let that killer get away, right? Thanks for that, Emillia would say. Hey. Now, I almost had it. And also, I got your insignia back for you, didn't I? Emillia would sigh, saying fine, as she offers Subaru to come back with her to Roswaal's estate to get himself cleaned up, and also to give him the information that she had promised him. Subaru would smirk, as both he and Emillia would start heading off towards Roswaal's estate. Subaru had defeated Elsa Granhert in combat, and was about to finish her off and deal the killing blow, before Reinhard van Astrea, the most powerful being perhaps in all of ReZero, had arrived, planning to take in the Bowel Hunter. Yet, unexpectedly, Reinhardt would realize that he could actually unsheath the legendary dragon sword, Reed, which has been passed down from one sword saint to the next for generations. Luckily, before anything was escalated because of Subaru, Reinhardt, being a kind knight, just would let it go for now. Just curious on who Subaru is, interested that someone like that would be worthy of Reed, the legendary sword. Emillia would take Subaru with her, as Subaru had been promised the deal, as Subaru and Emillia would return to Roswaal's estate. We begin our story here, as Subaru wakes up the next morning, after having finally made it to the mansion late at night with Emillia. Just like the original ReZero timeline, the two twin sisters, Rem and Ram, would have come to the guest chambers in order to wake him, to prepare him for his meeting with the Lord. That Lord being, of course, Roswaal himself. Anyhow, Subaru would be woken just like the original timeline. With Rem and Ram standing in the room, Subaru would open his eyes, quickly rubbing them as he feels the blurriness now basically melting away. Subaru would sit up, noticing the two inverted hair color girls, as he would then ask, what's up? Remembering him and Emillia having made it to the mansion last night and him just falling asleep in some room. Naturally, he would have no idea who these two are. Sister, our guest has woken up, Ram would say. Sister, I think you're right, Rem would reply back, as the two of them would begin to have their weird third-person conversations that they used to have during this arc. Anyway, Subaru would pull himself up as he then asks the girls if they know where Satella is. She's the woman who had brought her with him to the mansion last night. This comment would actually set off Ram and Rem, as they then berate Subaru for calling her that. Subaru, having no idea who Satella is or what that implication means, would be confused, as he's asking what, as the two of them are getting angry at him. This would be when Emillia then opens the door and then tells the girls to calm down, explaining that she had used an alias with Subaru, introducing her actual name is Emillia. Emillia would explain to Subaru that the name Satella is a nickname given to her because of her appearance, her being a silver-haired half-elf, which is the same appearance as the Witch of Envy, Satella. Anyway, since explaining the whole fairy tale about the Witch of Envy to Subaru would take too long, they decide that they're just going to head over to Roswaal's for lunchtime. As Subaru is trying to leave the room, he'd suddenly be grabbed by Rem on his arm. Excuse me, I'm supposed to be going somewhere. Rem would make a pouting face as she then shakes her head, telling Subaru that there's no way she can present him to the master like that. The Master Roz was going to think they're running a charity home or something for the homeless. Subaru would begin to get a little pissed off, as this is now the 5th or 6th time he's been mistaken as some random homeless person on the street. Look, I just didn't have the opportunity to get a... That's when Rem would interrupt saying, a haircut, yeah. Leave that to me. As Rem would grab Subaru, Ram pushing him from behind, as they bring Subaru and push him down to a chair. Emillia walking away, she says she'll leave him to them. As Subaru asks, wait, what are they doing? As Rem would then work on giving Subaru his new haircut. While Rem was working on Subaru's new do, Ram would go and pick some clothes out for Subaru, considering that what he was currently wearing was not... No, it was not clothes. It was more like rags. Before Rem could even
give Subaru a haircut, she would force Subaru to take a bath, just to make it easy on herself, Subaru doing so. As Subaru washes his no-shower Call of Duty looking ass, Subaru would look in the mirror as he sees himself for the first time, in what has been a long time, besides just looking in river or water reflections. Subaru would see himself, as Subaru now has like an 8-pack, is ripped, and also looks like a total hobo. Damn, no wonder everyone thought I was poor, Subaru would say, crying. Subaru would leave the bath as he dries himself, looking for his clothes, which are gone. Subaru would then turn as he notices the new clothes that had been prepared for him by Rom. Subaru would put on the gray button-down shirt and the black pants. Also some shoes being given to him. Some just black leathers. As Subaru would pull them on, Subaru looking in the mirror would look far different now. More like a butler, if anything. Well, aside from his hair, which is still ridiculously long. Subaru coming back into the room, his muscles rippling under the shirt from his gains from Skiadrum. Subaru would actually look presentable now, as Ram and Rem would be both impressed, giving each other a thumbs up, saying that they're makeover wizards. This would be when Rem would finish doing Subaru's haircut, as she decides to leave it somewhat longer, but still shorter than what it is now, cutting off a majority of it, since, for reference, Subaru's hair was going down like all the way down his back, and now he has his haircut down to his neck. So Subaru would have a spiky look, almost like what Natsu had during his return to the Grand Magic Games, just to keep his overall feel the same, but also not look like he hasn't had a haircut in several years, which he hadn't. Anyway, now that I'm finished describing Subaru's new look to you, it was time for Subaru to meet the long-awaited master. As Subaru, joining with Rem and Rom, would walk into the room, seeing Emillia and a clown. Subaru would be a bit confused, asking where the master is, as Emillia, Rom, and Rem would just look at him. Roswaal would clear his throat. Well, that would be me, of course. Oh, Subaru would say. Well, that's my bad, mister. It's nice to meet you. Subaru would say awkwardly. Emillia, Rem, and Rom just face-palming mentally at this point. Subaru would take a seat as Roswaal would offer the same proposition that he had in the original timeline to Subaru, offering one deal to Subaru. In this version, Subaru is not preoccupied worried about a job of some kind, so he would just directly ask what he'd been trying to get Emillia to tell him the last time, asking what year it is and where the hell he is. Roswaal would tell Subaru that he's in the Great Kingdom of Lagunica, also known as the Dragon Kingdom of Lagunica, and it's one of the 4 great nations. After Roswaal and Subaru talk, Subaru would come to realize that he's not been sent back in time, and that this world is not the same one he came from. No. Somehow he's been sent to a parallel world. Subaru would be contemplating this, wondering why he can still use magic so easily. As Subaru thinks about it, he realizes that there's a ton of Ethereon in the air, and that there must be some other way the people here use magic, since he's seen Emillia use it. Subaru would turn and ask Emillia how she used magic that other time. Oh, you mean with Puck? Emillia would summon Puck forward, as Subaru would then be explained to by Puck the gate. The gate being the location in your body that allows you to inhale and exude mana into magic. Asking if Subaru would like to know what his own mana type is. Explaining the several different types being earth, water, air, and fire. Puck would scan Subaru and check his mana type, and he would be Shadow. Subaru wouldn't even be surprised, as he already knows, as he then asks Puck what that means. Emillia would say that shadow magic is pretty much useless for anything besides debuffs. Subaru would immediately realize this isn't true, as he then tells Emillia that's a lie. They would all look at him strangely, as Subaru would then sit back down. Sorry, go on. Subaru would realize these people have an incredibly limited idea of how shadow magic works. Subaru potentially being one of the only people who can use offensive shadow magic in the world. Of course, Subaru in this timeline has not met Beatrice yet. Anyhow, Subaru would listen to their explanations. He then asks Puck if he'll try it out with him. Subaru pretending to be a novice. Roswaal would quickly smile, saying that's a wonderful idea, as he then tells Puck and asks if he'd be willing to help teach Subaru. Roswaal would then ask Subaru if there's anything else he wants besides just that information, as Subaru would then ask Roswaal if it'd be okay if he stays here for a while. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be a freeloader or anything. I'll do chores or anything else if you want, really. Just, I don't really have anywhere else to go right now anyway. Oh, but despite how it seems, I'm actually super strong, so if you need me to be a bodyguard or something, I can handle that. Basically, no one in the room would believe this except Roswaal, saying, "That sounds like a splendid idea," taking Rem and Rom with him as he instructs Puck to continue. Subaru and Puck would then go outside as Puck would then tell Subaru to focus on his mana and how it feels. Subaru closing his eyes, remembering when he was being trained by Skiadrum all those years ago. He remembered having to learn how to even use magic or feel it at all, which was really rough at the time. Subaru closing his eyes would envision it, as Puck would then tell him to use Shamak. Shamak being a simple shadow spell. Subaru, of course, having never heard of this, would then try his best. Puck would tell him to visualize exuding the mana from his gate, as Emillia would be standing far away to not get caught in if Subaru screwed it up. Puck would then tell him to use it, as Subaru would open his eyes saying, "Shamak." Suddenly, a humongous burst of Shamak would come blasting out of Subaru's hand, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as Puck's beginning to realize that Subaru's mana capacity is huge. "Subaru, stop! Stop!" Subaru would stop using Shamak, not even feeling a little bit tired, as he asked if that's all. Puck would say, "That was a lot for your first time. I don't believe you. Your mana's way too controlled." Subaru would smirk, saying it's not actually his first go using shadow magic, as he asked Puck if he wants to spar with him, throwing a few punches. Puck would laugh, saying maybe not, as he asked Subaru if he wants to see how shadow magic works on him. Subaru would be interested as he asked Puck to show him, as Puck would then use Shamak on Subaru. As the shadow would surround Subaru, nothing would happen. Subaru would say, as he reaches out and pokes Puck. "Well, this is pretty useless. It's just a bunch of smoke." Subaru would then breathe in, sucking up all of the shadows, as he then consumes the shadows, now replenishing his magical power. That was a good meal. Wow, Puck, your shadows taste pretty good. Licking his lips. This would be when Subaru would smile, saying he wants to show Puck something impressive. "Oi, Emillia," he'd say. "What?" Emillia would call from far away. "Come here." Subaru would then ask Emillia to create some ice and make a huge ice pillar, which she'd do. Subaru would then tell them all to take several steps back, as Subaru runs back by 100 meters, as he then tells them if they're ready. Puck would then give him the thumbs up, as Subaru then says, "Watch this," as Subaru closes his eyes, opening them. Subaru would take a deep breath in. "Shadow Dragon's secret art. Shadow Dragon's roar." As Subaru then roars a huge blast of darkness at the pillar. This would be impressive, not only to Emillia, but also to Puck, as the entire sculpture would be shattered to pieces by Subaru's attack. "I still got it," Subaru would say. Subaru would realize something though. Using his normal magic and then using this weird spell that Puck had given him, he'd feel like there were two different gates. This being Subaru's beginning to realize of the second origin. For those of you who don't understand what that is, basically back during the Grand Magic games, Natsu and the rest of his party had gone on that little filler quest where they wasted all their time that they would have been training for the Grand Magic games, and then had to be saved by Jalal's partner who can use time magic, and who would then use her ability to awaken their second origins, which basically gives you a whole new way of using your mana and magic power, and gives you just a huge increase. That's how Natsu became strong enough to take on both Sting and Rogue by himself. So Subaru would come to realize, not even knowing what a second origin is, that there was another gate inside of his body, being two gates. One which he was accustomed to using, and the other one being the second origin that Puck had forced him to use. This is just some narration here, but basically what I'm saying is that the people in ReZero have their origins reversed. So what would be your second origin in Fairytail is actually their regular origin in ReZero. Anyway, now that Subaru's magic test is over, he'd head back inside as he decides to help Ram and Rem with some chores, pulling his sleeves back, and he asks what he can do. Rama and Rem would actually be a bit more friendly to him in this timeline as well, since Subaru doesn't have the smell of the witch on him, since Subaru has not died yet. And another thing is that Subaru is not completely useless since he wasn't a NEET in his past life. Subaru was living in the mountains and fending for himself alongside a dragon from the age of 8 years old. So Subaru is able to use a knife without cutting himself. And even if he does stab himself in the skin, his skin won't even break from the knife. The knife probably taking more damage than his hand. Subaru messing up and still having to learn how to cut the potatoes, getting frustrated at how much of a failure he currently is. Well, I can't even do this basic stuff, Subaru thinking, as he realizes that he had spent all of his time training. Subaru would also begin learning how to read and write in this strange language from this world, so that he isn't completely incapable of buying or doing anything. Subaru now being incredibly grateful for this, but also being terrible at it because he hasn't been to school in years. Subaru would be suffering from studying as he just slams his head into his desk saying, "This is miserable, I hate this." Rem just patting him on the back saying if he ever wants to learn, then he'd better get his head off his book. About a week has passed at this point, and it's around this time that we run into the first issue of this run. Subaru would have been poisoned. Subaru would wake up in the middle of the night feeling sick as he pulls himself out of bed feeling wobbly. What the... Subaru would feel shaky as he pulled himself out of bed as he decides he has to get out and start moving around. Subaru thinking he's just hungry as he then heads towards the kitchen. Subaru taking every step will begin moving slower, but since he is a dragon slayer, the poison on him would be nowhere near as effective. This being when Ram shows up. Ram showing up to kill Subaru under the thought that he could be an enemy spy. But Subaru is not weak. Subaru would turn, sensing the bloodlust, as he then immediately realizes it's Ram, seeing in the dark. Ram? Ram would be shocked, having been all the way down the other side of the hallway. Subaru would ask Ram what's going on, saying he feels kind of sick, and asks if she felt the same way. Ram would immediately pull out her mace as Subaru realizes what's going on. Ram? As the battle between Ram and Subaru would begin. Today, in part 3, we ended off last time on a cliffhanger, that being yesterday, with Ram and Subaru now confronting each other. Subaru not nearly being as down from the poison as Ram had thought, and Subaru easily being able to sense and smell and see Ram in the dark. We begin our story here today. Ram? What are you doing here? Did you feel sick too? Yeah, I'm feeling kind of strange to be honest, Subaru would say, coughing a little. How are you not dead? I put enough poison in there to kill an elephant, she'd be thinking. And at this point, Ram would reveal her mace, planning to finish off the weakened Subaru. Subaru would immediately realize what's coming, as he'd use his shadow manipulation to duck out of the way, disappearing under the mace's blow. Damn it. I'm way too slow right now, Subaru would be thinking. How is this even possible? Why is Ram attacking me? What's going on? Subaru would fall out of shadow mode as he slumps against the wall, feeling the poison beginning to continue to take its effect. Ram would then throw another slice as Subaru ducks out of the way just in time, slamming into the column. The stone column breaking would cause the ceiling to collapse above it. And so stone, dust, and rubble and debris would begin falling from above. It's here that Ram realizes that Subaru will not be an easy target to kill, as she decides to get into close combat and try and finish this quickly. Ram would run in, now swinging her mace, as it wraps its chain around Subaru. Subaru would weakly lift his arm, using all of the magic power he can muster, as he then says, "Shadow Dragon King, penance!" Huh? What? Ram be thinking. Ram be looking around now on the floor, as she realizes she can't feel her body. What the? Where am I? Ram would be looking up and around, since her entire head had been sent flying, crashing from ceiling to floor, all the way to the other end of the hallway. Subaru would slump over, as he had used one of his most powerful spells, Penance, a Shadow Dragon King ability. Subaru would fall to the ground, as we now see a small flashback from just a few seconds ago. Subaru would have used Penance, as a small orb would appear in his hand, dropping to the ground like a snowflake, slowly falling as Ram was approaching quickly. Immediately as it touches the ground, a chilling scream would be sucked through the air, as all of the air around would begin to be sucked into the ball as it grows larger and larger. Rom would be already there and it's too late, as penance would take effect, blasting into Rom with the might of a black hole. This would completely destroy Rom's body. Everything besides her cranial would be sucked into this compression of mass, as the chilling screams of the mansion would begin to wake people up. However, something had happened which would seal Subaru's fate. When he had used this attack, Subaru had damaged and broken a hole into the Great Library. As Subaru's life would flash before his eyes, Beatrice would awaken. Beatrice, seeing the destruction to her library, would end Subaru's life. Subaru would have no idea what was happening. In this emotional state of distress for having to kill Rom, realizing that there was someone else here and that they were strong, and not having ever met Beatrice before, Subaru would be killed. A wind spell now destroying his body to pieces, as both Rom and Subaru would die. Subaru getting blasted out the window behind as his body is cut up, blood spurting out of him as he falls crashing into the garden below. Subaru would try to reach out to try and consume some shadow. Any shadows, something, I just need a little mana. I can get away and then... It's as Subaru's hand is reaching out, suddenly, a chilling black hand would entangle it. What? Subaru would see it. Shadows would begin surrounding him as he realizes that there's something here. Something's right by me. My chest, it's burning. What is this? What is? The shadowy hand would grip Subaru's heart, begin squeezing it, as Subaru would lay eyes on her for the very first time. The Queen of Shadows, Satella, the Witch of Envy. Subaru, seeing this, would feel all of his senses going off on danger's mode. Danger, danger, danger. Escape, escape. Subaru would be shaking, having now felt mortal fear for the second time. The first time being when he had first laid eyes upon Skiadrum. Who are you? He'd suddenly begin hearing in his mind, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Over and over and over again, as shadows begin to wrap around Subaru, as Return by Death begin to activate. No, no, Subaru would say, I won't be beaten by the dark. Subaru begins sucking in as he begins consuming the shadows from her authority. Subaru would be slurping the arms down like noodles, getting larger and larger. Oh my god, these shadows are so disgusting. Oh. Subaru would continue eating as Satella would be providing a limitless amount of shadows. Subaru would get wider and wider as his stomach begins filling up, his magical power going into higher and higher states. No, I can't. Subaru's gates would begin to overflow as Subaru would burst, bursting into thousands of pieces, exploding from how much mana he was consuming. And thus, Return by Death would activate for the very first time. Suddenly, Subaru would open his eyes as he sits up in bed, feeling a cold sweat. What was that? Was that a... Subaru looking down his hands. Was that a dream? Subaru would hold his neck in his hands, remembering the chilling feeling of all of those shadowy hands surrounding him, as he remembered what happened to him. Oh god. Sister, I think our guest is awake. Yes, sister, and he seems to be insane. That or a masochist since he's choking himself. Suddenly, Subaru's eyes would turn upwards, as he sees them again. The red and blue-haired girls, Rom and Rem. Rom, you bastard. I have no idea how you survived that, but I'll finish it right here. Subaru would begin to say, as suddenly the door would open, Emillia walking in. Rom would be confused as to why Subaru is so aggressive. Emillia once again explaining to Subaru that she had used an alias with him and that her actual name was Emillia. Subaru wouldn't say anything aloud, as he's slowly beginning to realize what's going on. Did I go back in time somehow? What? How does that even work? I've never had an ability to do something like that. That wasn't even... The only way you can achieve time travel is through, like, an eclipse gate or something. Subaru then realized, Wait. As he turns around, realizing that his clothes and his hair are all messy again. Then that means I got sent back in time a week? All of those memories that I have, they're all gone? They don't remember me, Subaru would be thinking. Subaru's face would be covered in shadows, not knowing what to do next. As he's thinking over this, he decides just to replay it out and try and figure out what went wrong, since Ron was really friendly to him until that happened, and everything had seemed to be going well, so something must have gone wrong. As Subaru would then begin to go through the week, replaying what he had done exactly the same time last time. Subaru going through the whole process once again, going through the bath, getting his haircut, his new clothes, and eventually meeting Roswaal. It's here that he slightly changes his phrasing on his question to try and elicit a more neutral response. Subaru would simply ask Roswaal if he could have a place to stay and perhaps work as a butler of sorts or something at the mansion for Roswaal. He would explain to Roswaal that he really has nowhere to go and that he had just been mostly wandering around the capital before he had ran into Emillia. Roswaal would accept this proposal. Subaru in this timeline not asking Puck about magic or anything like that at all. No, instead, Subaru has a different goal. Now that he's a butler of the mansion, he'd begin going through training by Rom and Rem. However, he'd be much better than they would expect, with Subaru being able to carve the potato skins, just as they had taught him the last week when he was learning all this stuff the first time. However, Subaru has a different goal in this run. Subaru decided he needs to test and figure out who that was. By that, I mean, of course, Beatrice, for all of us, the audience. Subaru last time had been killed after he had barely won on the brink of death by Beatrice, and even then, that was still impressive, considering that Dragon Slayers have an incredibly high vitality. Of course, Subaru was also concerned about that shadow user, that one that had... Subaru would gulp, remembering how he had burst into pieces like that. Subaru would feel a bit queasy after thinking about that. Subaru, are you sure you're not hungry? Rem would say. Yeah, I'm fine, Subaru would say. Subaru would begin trying to open doors to try and find Beatrice. This actually not being as easy as it was for the original Subaru from the ReZero timeline, considering that Subaru had been playing games and being a NEET his entire life, so he was really good at breaking dungeons, as he himself has stated. This Subaru has not played video games in a decade, so he doesn't exactly have that skill. Subaru would just be opening doors randomly trying to find Beatrice. Eventually, after a couple days, finding the correct door. This being Beatrice's door crossing. Subaru would be amazed as he opens the door seeing the huge library. Walking into as he closes the door behind him, seeing a little girl with two drill-like pigtails now sitting on a stool in front of him. And there she is, the little kill stealer, he'd be thinking. My HP was low, and you third-party, you little shit, he'd be thinking. Beatrice would look up from her book, asking what does he want, asking who this guy is, anyway. Subaru would be a bit ticked off at this comment, saying that he's actually a new butler in town, and he's working for Master Roswaal. Well, Beatrice would then say, if you were a new butler, you should know that no one should enter this great library besides Master Roswaal himself and me. So, shoo. She waved her hand as a burst of wind would send Subaru flying out of the door. Subaru now not giving up as he tries to run back in before the door closes. Subaru would run around the mansion tirelessly, opening doors as he finds Beatrice over and over again. Learning eventually that her name was Beatrice, and he would aptly give her the name Bayako, just like the original. Emillia and Puck would be watching this going on, as Puck would answer Emilia's question of what Subaru's doing, saying that it looks like Beatrice has found a new playmate. Once again, Subaru would get sent blasting out of the window, now all the way from the Great Library to the garden below. Emillia and Puck who were outside running over to see what happened, as Subaru pulls himself up, completely fine. Sorry about that, Emillia. I was just, trying to clean up the library. It's as Subaru is saying this that Rom and Rem would come charging over, asking what the hell Subaru is doing, and saying that they need him to do some work, as Rem would grab Subaru by the collar and start dragging him with them. See you later, guys. I guess I have some stuff to do. Subaru would be worked to the bone, now helping Rem clean out Roswaal's closet, now organizing clothes, working on dusting the mansion. Subaru would be exhausted falling into bed that night. It was the same night in the next week where he would have died. However, as Subaru wakes up the next morning, he'd smile, realizing that he hasn't been killed yet, thinking that he might have just gotten past his troubles. Subaru would then walk out of his room, now all dressed and ready to work for the day. But it would be unusually quiet. Huh, it's weird that Ram isn't berating me already. What's going... Suddenly, Subaru would hear sobbing, tears, as Subaru would be able to sense it with his Dragon Slayer senses, hearing from the floor above. Something's wrong. Subaru would turn to the stairs, running at full speed, as he climbs up the stairs 2 at a time, leaping up to the next floor, as he then runs all the way down the hallway to the room, opens the door, slamming it, and asks, What's wrong? As Subaru would come to realize that while he had not died, someone else had. Rem, Subaru would say. Ron would be crying, as we see Rosalind and Emillia already in the room, shocked that Rem had died. Ram, hearing Subaru's voice, would turn, seeing his shocked expression. Angry, she would then accuse him. It was you, wasn't it? Nothing had ever happened before, until you came, so it has to be you. Subaru wouldn't say anything, contemplating and thinking in his mind. What went wrong? It wasn't... Ram didn't kill her sister, right? There's no way, she's crying right in front of me. Say something! Ram's voice would echo in Subaru's mind, as Subaru could not say anything. I don't know what happened, he'd say. Ram would take this as the admittance of guilt, just like the original, as she charges at Subaru. Subaru would just stand there as he takes the punches, not even taking any damage from it, as he just stand there, his shirt getting slowly destroyed. Why did she have to die? Please tell me, why did my little sister have to die? Ren be crying, punching Subaru with all of her strength, her fists bloodied from her own blood, as she's opening wounds on her knuckles on Subaru's iron-like skin. She just keeps punching and crying, as Subaru just stand there. It's here in this run where Subaru then decides he knows what he wants to do, as Subaru then holds his hand out, covering it with shadows, as he then punches himself in the chest with full force, ripping through his own body, as he falls to the ground. Everyone screaming, as Subaru's consciousness fades. Subaru feeling the burning pain in his chest once again, as the shadows envelop him, making him feel a cold chill. The thoughts in Subaru's mind he'd be grasping would be that he will never let his friends cry. That this time, I'm going to save everyone. As the next and final run of the mansion arc begins. If you guys are excited to see part 4 for What If Subaru Was a Shadow Dragon Slayer, make sure to hit the like button, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe to this channel for more videos like this from me. Anyway, I'll be taking a small break from this series for just a little bit while I'm going to work on some other stuff. You know, like Meliodas' son and Austin Fairytail and Suka no Subaru. Gotta get some stuff updated. Maybe a little Warlock Naruto. But I am not leaving this series in the gutter. I'll have part 4 ready so that next week, so like a couple days from now, I'll be getting that going while I have these other series coming out. So just before I end it off here, I want to clarify a little something here in how Subaru dies, which, to be honest, at this point seems unrealistic. You know, just knowing everything about Fairytail and how all the Dragon Slayers were basically plot armor immortals. Yeah, I'm gonna go here with that Subaru was heavily poisoned by Ram, for one thing, so he was off his game. Ram had damaged him a little with her mace, and also Beatrice being the one to kill Subaru is the only way I can do it, because neither Ram nor Rem are strong enough to do it. It has to be someone like Roswaal or Satella or Beatrice, who is a great spirit and is definitely powerful enough to do some damage. And since Subaru was weakened, I would say it's very fair to say that he could have been killed by Beatrice, especially since she had seen Ram just get killed and also her library had been attacked. I don't believe it'd be too far-fetched to say that she would use her full strength to kill him. And for all the ReZero fans in the comments, yes, I know Beatrice is typically not that type, but Subaru has not talked to her in that run at all. He had not even known she existed since he hadn't been opening doors like he had in the original. So that is my logic here, if, that makes any sense. I hope that can somewhat round this out so I can get more plot and also have some way for, Subaru to die realistically. And for the second naysayer comment, I'll say Subaru killing himself for this isn't that unlikely, I would say. He's inherited the will of the Dragon Slayers, and if you remember Natsu was straight up ready to do anything. Man burned time to save his friends. I don't find it unrealistic that Subaru would do something of the same to protect his now new friends he's made. Now entering into part 4, the final run of the mansion arc, where Subaru has decided that he's going to save everyone. So, let's get started. Subaru would cover his hands in shadows as he punches himself in the chest, ripping through his own body, as Subaru would fall to the ground slumping over and dying. The shadows of this witch that he has no idea who could be, surrounding him as he is seemingly teleported once again back through time. This being the second ever time that Subaru has died in the world of ReZero. Subaru would wake up in bed a week ago, just like he had the first time when Beatrice had killed him. Subaru this time having his smell of the witch slightly increase, this throwing off the two twin demon sisters who had been there to watch him. A difference this time is that Subaru himself can actually smell this change. Subaru, being a dragon slayer having incredibly heightened senses of smell, would begin to actually smell this scent of the witch that Ram and Rem could also smell. It was disgusting, like a sickly sweet scent. The kind of smell that makes you gag and cover your face. Subaru would pull himself out of bed, greeting the two in the morning, acting incredibly calm, as Subaru is already beginning to calculate in his head how he's going to save them, thinking about his first run, where he had inadvertently collected the suspicion of Ram, who had then killed him by trying to poison him, and when that failed, Beatrice having finished him off. Subaru would immediately decide that working with Beatrice again and befriending her was a good choice to do, since she hasn't met him yet. Subaru would still be not quite used to the whole time travel thing, so it'd be a bit rough when he brings up stuff from his previous conversations that he obviously should not know about. So Subaru would try to keep those type of conversations on the down low. Anyway, per cue, Subaru would ask the two sisters where he was, saying he just remembered he had come to this place with Lady Emillia last night, and was now here. This is when Emillia would enter the room just like the last run, who had come to clear up any misunderstandings, explaining to Subaru that this is where her benefactor lives, and telling Subaru that, as an offer, they'll probably be offering Subaru some sort of reward for helping find her insignia. But of course, Subaru would know this. Subaru would act surprised, thanking Emillia as he'd go through the motions once again, meeting with Roswaal and asking to be a butler at the mansion, explaining to Roswaal that he doesn't really have anywhere to go, since he had been traveling and was just chilling on the road, really. And he then explains to Roswaal that it'd be nice to just have somewhere to stay, to be honest. And he's also pretty strong, so if he needs a bodyguard for Emillia here, I've got you covered, Subaru would say, grabbing his left bicep with his right hand as he flexes his muscles. Ram would roll her eyes as Rem would just watch silently. It's from here that after this formalities were completed, Subaru would immediately make his way over to Beatrice, introducing himself to her and saying that he's the new butler here and he knows he shouldn't be entering here, but he was curious about the great library and was wondering what she does here. Beatrice would be continuously annoyed, pushing him out of the library, and Subaru finding it over and over again, eventually finding Beatrice and finally gaining some trust from her, seeing as how annoying he was. Subaru would smile, asking Beatrice just one teensy tiny favor, as he asked Beatrice if she knows about any magic that could kill someone over a long period of time, like a delayed spell or something. Beatrice would ask Subaru who he's trying to kill, as Subaru then explains it's not for him. He was just wondering since a good friend of his had died that way, and he was curious if she had any idea on how that could have happened. Beatrice would huff as she decides she'll explain about shamans quickly and then get him out of here for good, just to get rid of him, as she then pulls out one of the books and explaining to Subaru how shamans' powers work, saying that they would require some sort of physical touch with a person in order to inlay the curse upon them. It's a curse that afflicts one's body until they die. A curse, huh? Subaru would say. Can you, see them or something? Subaru would ask, trying to figure out if there's any way he can dictate if someone is being cursed. This would be when Beatrice says that she herself could probably see a curse, but she doesn't explain why to Subaru. But for us, it's because she's a great spirit, so she can see all that stuff. Subaru would try and think of another way as he decides he'll try using his nose, thinking back to last week before Rem had died, and remembering when she could have gotten that curse. Realizing that the only one who could have been a shaman and would have tried to kill Rem would have been someone in the village, someone in Arlem Village. The place inside of Roswaal's domain that him and Rem had actually both gone down to get groceries the other day. Subaru would drop his closed fist into his open palm, saying, "That's it!" as he realizes when Rem had to have been cursed, thinking of how her scent had changed after that point. After he had smelled something different, but he had just thought that his nose was being overreactive or something. Subaru would smile going in for the spin around on Bayako before she would blast him out of the library saying, "No, don't touch her," as she then puts the library somewhere he would never find it. Subaru would sigh, saying I guess that's all he could get, as he then decides to go and run and help Ram and Rem before they come and looking for him like they did in the last timeline. Subaru would run to the kitchen and immediately start working on potatoes and skinning them, as well as some other of the kitchen tasks, obviously being much better now after doing it for 2 or 3 weeks at this point, from his previous experience. Subaru would then go and clean Roswaal's bath chambers as well. Subaru would be waiting and listening for the opportunity when Rem is going down to the village to get groceries, offering to take Ram's place in this timeline instead, saying that he's pretty strong and he can help carry all the groceries. Ram, of course, still being lazy like usual, would take this easy out, and she decided that she's earned a day off, telling Barasu not to screw it up. Subaru would nod, saying it's easy, he's got this, as he'd head out with Rem going down to the village. Just like the original, this Subaru would be incredibly good with kids, as kids would be impressed with Subaru doing party tricks with his shadow magic. For a reference, think of Aqua from Konosuba. Anyway, Subaru and Ram would get their groceries with Subaru watching to see who touches Rem. While Subaru was keeping his eye out for Rem, he'd be playing with the kids, and eventually a little girl would come up with a dog, saying that she found this lost stray puppy earlier. And as the dog approaches Subaru going to pet it, the dog would bite him. Huh, that's weird, Subaru would say. Animals had always loved Subaru, especially after he had started his training as a dragon slayer. It was kinda off and weird that this little puppy hated him for some reason. Subaru would be debating in his mind if this has something to do with that weird smell covering him from after that last time when he had just restarted the loop. Subaru though would put it aside for now, as he waves goodbye to the kids and heads back with Rem, not having noticed anyone particularly suspicious from the villagers. Subaru would have come up with another plan, deciding that he was going to see if maybe he had been touched by someone who could have been the shaman this time, thinking that maybe that poison from the first time when Ram had killed him could have actually potentially instead been a curse. Subaru would then again think about this before he just starts punching his head, thinking, this isn't getting me anywhere. I'll just go talk to Bayako. She'll probably know what to do anyway. Subaru walking into the Great Forbidden Library, opening it, Beatrice would look up from her book, noticing Subaru, and while seeing him, she would then notice that there was something on his hand. It looked like a bite of something. Anyway, Subaru would step forward and ask Beatrice if she has any more information about shamans, and coincidentally, she would, pointing at Subaru's hand saying that he's got a curse right there. Subaru looked down at his hand seeing the bite and wouldn't notice anything, thinking, huh? You're joking, right? As Subaru would then gesture at his hand once again. Subaru and Beatrice would have this little play go on for a while before Beatrice just tells him to accept it that he's been cursed. Subaru freaking out, wondering what he should do, as he's thinking about just eating the curse off his hand, wondering if he could even do that, wondering if curses are even a part of shadow magic or dark magic. Beatrice would again be confused, not having seen Subaru actually eat magic before, so she'd say, Beatrice would have a total brain lapse, as she then says, yes, it'd be categorized under dark magic, but what is that? Subaru would start sucking on his hand as hard as he can, biting onto his hand and sucking and using his magic abilities as a dragon slayer, literally eating the curse off of his hand, and Beatrice would be amazed, watching the curse slowly vacuum out of his body, and he would be cured. Well, I guess it's close enough to shadow magic for me to consume it. That tastes kind of nasty though. Beatrice, being a great spirit who has lived almost 100 years or more, Seeing this for the very first time would be dumbstruck. Never having seen any sort of divine protection that allowed someone to consume magic like it was a snack. That's a new one, she'd be thinking. This would actually put a different thought into her head, believing that this could mean that Subaru is actually perhaps the witch Sin Archbishop of Gluttony. The Sin Archbishop of Gluttony being known for being able to consume other types of magic, a rumor that had been going around Lagunica. This would actually put Beatrice on guard against Subaru, Subaru not understanding what's up, as he asks what's going on, asking if the curse is all gone. She nods saying it is, and then asks Subaru how he got that. Subaru put his hands behind his head saying, "Oh, you know, I just went down to the village to get some groceries with Rem," and Subaru would remember, wait a minute, that little girl, she did have a strange scent, kind of like... Subaru's eyes widen as he runs out of the room at full speed. Subaru would stop by Rem and Ram's room, telling them to stay in the mansion and guard Emillia, saying that he's going down to the village right now. Subaru knowing he can handle this by himself. Ram and Rem would be confused and also worried, as Subaru explains that there's going to be an attack on the village tonight. Ram and Rem would offer to come, but Subaru would hold his hand up saying he's got this, saying that if he doesn't return within an hour, the village is probably safe, or he's dead, so take that as you will. Subaru would run out of the building telling them to stay safe and to tell Master Roswaal what's going on. Subaru would throw a black cloak over himself as he fades into the shadows and starts moving through his shadow speed towards the village, making it there in record time. Arriving at the village, he'd notice on his way that some of the crystals that Emillia had filled of her mana, using her spirit arts to protect the village, had disappeared. Subaru would grit his teeth, moving even faster. As he arrives at the center of the village, Subaru would pop out of the shadows, scaring the villagers as they ask what's going on, pointing pitchforks at him. Subaru would hold his hands up as they realize who it is, saying, "It's Subaru." Subaru would answer asking where the kids are. The parents themselves beginning to realize, and they had already begun to realize, that they were missing, telling Subaru everything they had found out, that all the kids were gone, and they hadn't seen anyone, and there were some mob beasts outside, they could hear howling. Subaru would narrow his eyes saying he's gonna go get them back, as one of them would offer Subaru a sword. Subaru would turn around, covering his fist of shadows as he turns back towards the villagers, saying, "He's got this." "I'll be right back," Subaru would say. "Everyone stay inside the village, and if things get worse or they come in and I can't stop them, then run to the mansion. Master Roswaal and Lady Emillia will protect you there. Alright?" Everyone nodding as Subaru turns and runs away, his cloak falling behind him as he disappears into the shadows, faster than any beast. Subaru would close his eyes as he sniffs deeply, breathing in the forest air. Subaru being able to smell the people who have been dragged away, as he realizes that they were walking themselves, thinking they must have been hypnotized or put under some sort of curse. Subaru moving towards where his scent is taking him. While Subaru was going after the kids, Ram and Rem had come down to the village to see what Subaru was on about. The villagers explaining to the twins that Subaru had run off into the shadows saying he's going to go bring all their kids back. Ram would sigh thinking what an idiot, and she tells Rem to follow her close behind, using her divine protection to see through the minds of the animals in the forest. Ram would find where Subaru is. Subaru standing off against about 10 to 20 mob beasts. The two girls hurrying. Meanwhile, back at Subaru's perspective, we see him guarding the kids, his arm thrown back, telling them to stay behind him. Meili had already been figured out by Subaru and had been thrown away from the kids by Subaru. Meili grabbing her arm and saying that's not a way to treat a kid like her. Subaru grit his teeth as he uses shadow magic, creating a barrier around the kids, as he then tells her to fight with him and leave them out of this. The mobbies would charge forward, the dog-like beasts howling as they try to scratch and hurt Subaru. However, Subaru would be immune to these attacks, simply fading through their strikes as he walks towards Meili, covering his fist with shadows. The mob beasts, realizing that they can't damage him with their claws or teeth, will begin using magic and covering themselves as they attack Subaru. Subaru being forced to dodge their strikes, but still being far easier than he expected. Shadow Dragon's secret art. Yin's Howl. Subaru would spin, his right arm being covered with darkness as he slashes through the dogs, cutting off and decapitating them in a single blow, all of them falling to the ground and beginning to bleed onto the ground. The kids would scream, asking if Subaru's alright. Subaru would turn back as they see his eyes covered in darkness. Subaru would smirk, saying this is nothing. As he turns back to the mobbies who's about to bite him, Subaru's arm being covered in shadows would just take the bite, as it doesn't even affect him. Subaru with his bare fist would then punch the mob beast with full force, knocking it out as it falls unconscious. It's at this point that Subaru would decide to use that new skill Puck had showed him. Subaru covering his eyes, he uses Shamak, spreading the shadows out and depriving the senses of everything around him. Subaru, however, could see everything clearly. Subaru being a shadow dragon and all. Melee would turn to run, but a shadow dragon never lets its prey escape. The small puppy being in her hand, she'd drop it as it begins to grow into a massive size. Subaru realizing and seeing that this was the alpha of this pack of mob beasts. Subaru would think, she's gonna get away. As Subaru slams his fist into the ground, shadows expanding quickly across the floor of the forest, running up towards Melee's feet and slashing at her ankle, cutting her tendons as she'd scream out as she falls to the ground, limping with one leg. Subaru would grit his teeth thinking that he missed, having been planning to take out both of her legs so she couldn't move or escape. Subaru would block the huge strike from the dog, as its paw would be about to crush Subaru. Subaru just blocking it with one hand, looking up towards the dog, the mob beast whimpering under Subaru's hard, cold stare, beginning to back off. It's at this point Subaru would sense something as he turns, seeing more mob beasts now crowding through the forest, Rem and Rom being chased by them from behind. Rem using her mace and Rom using her magic. Parisu, you idiot! What are you doing here? Subaru would tell him to dive to the ground, both girls doing so, as Subaru uses a shadow dragon roar, mincing all of the dogs that have been falling behind them as it gets slammed into trees and would be shredded. Subaru would turn back towards Melee, telling them that she's the one who had brought these mob beasts here, explain that Emilia's crystals had been taken out and he had saw it when he had been here with Rem the other day. Subaru would turn towards Rem, asking if she can take the kids and get back to the village. The little girl would turn, saying, "Wow, I really thought that the client was kidding when he said he needed 2 of us for you." Molly would turn smiling, she says, "Elsa!" Elsa Grandhair would appear, as Subaru would block the slash towards Rem's throat. Subaru would block the strike with his hand, catching the blade as blood would spurt down his hand. She'd be impressed, realizing that Subaru does have a weakness. Since she can't hit him with her blade, then I'll just kill everyone else while you watch, she'd say. Subaru's eyes would be filled with rage. He tells Rom to get out of there, saying he'll handle this. Rom would grab Subaru's hand, saying that she's going to help him, using magic as she blasts Elsa away with wind. Elsa and Melee getting ready for a 2v2 fight between them and Rom and Subaru. Subaru and Rom would be now in a 2v2 fight against Elsa and Melee, the 2 assassins that someone had hired to attack the Roswaal estate. We have no idea who this is or why they're attacking the Emillia camp, but currently they're in a forest fighting over the fate of Arlem village and thus the fate of the Mathers domain. Thus the battle would begin. Elsa, of course, having superhuman speed, strength, and regeneration, having been shown in all of the ReZero content so far, shown in the anime at least, how even strong attacks from things like mob beasts can't keep her down. It's almost like she has some sort of cloning-like ability with how fast she can recover from damage, having been able to even fight with the person known as Reinhardt the Sword Saint for quite a long period of time. Of course, Elsa's stats are basically nothing to Subaru. Subaru having far superior strength equivalent to that of a dragon. The dragon being the symbol of strength, power, and spirit that combined makes up the kingdom of Lagunica, the Dragon Kingdom, ironically enough being the place where Subaru was summoned. Anyway, the battle begins, Subaru saying he'll take Elsa, and Rom thus going after Melee. Melee really being only a small girl, her real strengths come from her control over mob beasts, being a shaman. It's something that's somewhat of a rare ability in the world of ReZero, and makes her a threat. The battle beginning, Subaru would immediately begin by pushing off of his right foot, giving him a head start, to say. And as this massive push would actually cause the ground to crack, Subaru taking advantage of this speed to get as close as he can to Elsa and close that distance before she can go after Ram. And also, just a quick thing I should add here, because some people in the comments were confused, I'm talking about Rom, the pink-haired one, not the blue-haired one that everyone talks about that doesn't exist or something in the memes. So no, not Rom. I'm not pronouncing it wrong. I mean Rom. Okay? Alright, back to the fight. Subaru has now effectively closed the distance between himself and Elsa. Elsa trying to kill and attack Rom being her best strategy so far, and the first time she has ever managed to injure Subaru in any way. Subaru having blood now sweeping down his hand from the cut he had caught earlier, that being Elsa's blade. Elsa knows that physically Subaru has no weaknesses, that being that if she attacks him with her knife or any physical object, Subaru will simply phase through it and turn into darkness. That's why she's going after Rom as her main strategy, to force Subaru to be able to take the strikes. Subaru of course would know this. Subaru now moving in between himself, Elsa, and Rom. Rom going on the offensive against melee, using a wind spell. Subaru would cover his fist with shadows. Shadow Dragon Claw! Subaru would punch forward with shadows coating his fist. The shadows pulsating into Elsa, sending her body ricocheting backwards further away from Rom and Subaru. Subaru would then once again step with his right foot, pushing off the ground faster as he uses his speed as a Shadow Dragon Slayer, transforming into shadows and moving at the speed of a shadow. Reappearing behind Elsa as he slashes with his hand with a blade made out of midnight, carving at Elsa's neck. Elsa would now block this with her own blade, the shadows trying to bend around the knife. She would then cut the tree behind her other hand, ripping through it and forcing Subaru to get out of its shadow. Subaru physically remanifesting. I didn't think it was going to be that easy, Subaru would say. Shadow Dragon! Roar. Subaru would open his mouth, charging darkness and mana into it as a huge wave of shadow would come pouring from Subaru as it rams into Elsa, causing Elsa to dig her feet and grit her teeth, holding her arms up to try and block the blow. The ground beneath Elsa's feet being turned to dirt. Elsa would slip as she falls over, Subaru taking this advantage. Of course, this was planned. Elsa would take this opportunity to slash upwards at Subaru, who would actually get cut, having been too quick on the draw. Subaru's chin getting sliced, Subaru falling backwards onto the ground before doing a flip and pulling himself back up to his feet, deciding to try and stick to more ranged attacks. Meanwhile, Rom would be having her own difficulties fighting Melee. Melee's small size and agility combined with her controlling mob beasts, even though most of them had been wiped out by Subaru by now, they were still hard to deal with, especially when she had that alpha dog who was able to control the ground and earth beneath it, using this ability to her advantage to give Rom uneven footing. She'd be using wind spells to slice up and chop the dogs, causing these mob beasts to slowly be getting withered down. An additional thing that Rom would be have to worry about is Rem. Rem being unconscious after her control the demon ability had gone out of her hands, and she had to be taken out by Subaru. Since Rem was unconscious behind her, Rom had to be extra careful to make sure that she did not allow any beasts or anything to attack her sister while she was unconscious and unable to defend herself. This being something that Subaru also has to keep mind of when fighting Elsa. After both of them would be fighting off their respective enemies for a while longer, this would be eventually when Emillia would come down to the village after seeing and hearing the commotion. Emillia would come down from the mansion, walking towards the village wondering where Rom, Rem, and Subaru might have gone, the three of them having seemingly disappeared from the premises a while ago and it being late. While Emillia approaches the village, she would notice that the crystals that she had put out to protect the village's boundaries from mob beasts that had been filled with mana had been removed, realizing that someone had tampered with them. This causing unease within Emillia. Emillia running to hurry to find where Subaru could have been. Eventually running to the village to find the villagers all hiding in their houses as Subaru and the girls had told them, with them explaining to Emillia what had happened with the mansion's butler and maids. Emillia would head in the direction they had pointed where Subaru had ran off saying he could find their kids earlier, to which Emillia would find Rem unconscious, Subaru and Rom battling these two strangers, and the kids unconscious from the village. Subaru would immediately notice Emillia, telling her to take them and run, saying that if Emillia can get them out of there, then he'd smirk. I can handle this easily. This would be when Emillia would trust Subaru, picking up two of the kids and carrying them out of there, using ice magic to create a shield around them for when she would come back, slowly moving them back from their pile of unconsciousness to the village, with the parents coming out to grab their kids, thanking Emillia and also making it seem as though Emillia was the one who had saved them, building her repertoire and making her seem like a more competent leader, although this was unconsciously something Subaru had done at this point. By the time Emillia had come for Rem, who was the last one there, per Ram and Subaru's request, and had now moved out of the way, carrying her over her shoulder, Emillia would be exhausted, breathing heavily, Subaru holding back Elsa's blade with his hand covered in a shadow-like substance. Ram, when I say the word, get out of here, alright? I'm gonna blow this place to hell. Barisu, what are you... Do it. Just get out of here, now! Ram would retreat, now going after Emillia and Rem. Melee saying she's not going to let her as more mobbies would chase after Ram. Subaru would flick his other hand towards them as shadow knives would be now expelled from his hand, stabbing the beasts as they'd go down. Subaru would then back off of Elsa, who would say she's not going to let him. Too late, Subaru would say, Emillia, put up a shield of ice. Do it now. I've got this. Emillia would create a huge wall of ice telling Subaru to go crazy. Subaru would then release all of his magic power with this final attack to wipe both of them and all the mob beasts out. Shadow Dragon's secret art. Shadow Dragon's howl. Black hole. Subaru would condense his mana into a single point, causing the density of the air to begin to almost shrink into it, as Subaru would create a miniature black hole with all of his magic power, absorbing all of the energy from the surrounding area as he blasted out into a Shadow Dragon howl, creating a huge blast radius that would hit both Elsa, Melee, and all the mob beasts. Elsa would run in front of Melee, tanking the blast. The two of them would get sent sprawling through trees for a whole mile. All of the mob beasts being slaughtered. The trees, the mountains, the rocks, everything in front of Subaru before this power would be erased. As a huge crater, a perfectly spherical hole of dirt would begin crumbling through the area, with the amount of power having knocked Elsa unconscious and Melee having one of her arms blown off from the impact. Subaru would fall to the ground onto his knees before falling unconscious, having expelled all of his magic power that he could into that final attack to finish them off. Emilia's ice wall would fall to the ground, shattering, as she calls out Subaru's name as he falls unconscious. Subaru and Ren would both be out for the count, the villagers thanking Emillia and Subaru for what they had done to save them. Emilia's first order of business being to take Rem and Subaru back to the mansion before she herself would go back to the village to restore the mana within the crystals and protect them from mob beasts in the future. Rem would regain consciousness far before Subaru, who would be using her water magic to heal Subaru. Subaru would heal unordinarily fast, but even though his body had healed, Emillia and Ram were both worried about Subaru, thinking and wondering if he had broken his gate, being the way in this world in order to use magic. Beatrice and Puck would both check Subaru to find that his gate was completely fine. It was strange. If what they had said had come to pass and Subaru had really expelled that much magic power, he should have at least shattered or at least damaged his gate in some way. Even if he was extraordinarily durable, this doesn't make any sense. Roswaal would be even more fascinated with Subaru after realizing this point, looking into his black book that he carries around with him everywhere to pass the time while they were waiting on Subaru's recovery. Subaru would wake up in a couple hours, pulling himself up and saying that he has a raging headache and he's starving. Subaru would lean over and fall out of bed before he begins sucking on the shadow underneath the bed, eating the shadow to regain some of his magic power, burping as he pulls himself up. I have not had to do that in a while, he would say, yawning, saying he might be getting a little rusty. Emillia, Ram, and Rem would hug Subaru, asking if he's okay. Subaru would push them off him, saying he's fine, asking why they look like that, with Ram and Emillia punching Subaru for telling him not to use something like that. He could have killed himself, you know. Subaru would laugh, saying, huh, really? Remembering all the huge attacks he had used back in the mountains, back on Earth with his partner and friend, his parent, Skiadrum. Skiadrum letting off way bigger attacks than that against Subaru. Subaru would laugh at them, saying that that's not even half of what he can really do. Looking down at his fist, thinking about a lesson he had with Skiadrum. Skiadrum having been trying to pull Dragon Force out of Subaru, trying to force him to enter the mode, but no matter what they did, even with him consuming Skiadrum's magic, he just couldn't seem to activate for some reason. And they still had no idea why. Dragon Force, huh? Maybe if I had that today, Rem wouldn't have had to go and do that. Maybe I could have protected everyone. Damn it. I have to get stronger. Far, far stronger. I'll be able to activate the Dragon Force at will someday. I promise you that, Skiadrum. Emillia and the rest wouldn't be completely confident in their analysis of Subaru, deciding that they're going to take Subaru and take him with them to the royal capital for the next stage of the royal selection. Emillia telling Subaru that he'll be coming with her in order to get his gate checked, and that's it. Not expecting him to do anything else. Got it? Subaru would smirk, saying that they're going to the royal capital, then that means I'll get to see that stupid handsome face again, thinking of Reinhardt. Subaru would have knives for teeth, Emillia already being worried. She covers her face, saying he's going to do something dumb again. Subaru would have a devilish grin on his face, saying that if he runs into that red-haired guy, he's going to give him a run for his money. That I can say for sure, Subaru would say, nodding. Yep, I'm definitely coming with to the royal capital now. Emillia would already be regretting her decision to promise to let Subaru come with. It would be after this, a few days later, when both Felix, along with Wilhelm van Astrea, would accompany each other on a carriage to the Roswaal domain. This, of course, being sent in order to invite Emillia and Camp, who she decides to bring with, to the royal selection's next stage, along with Felix being asked by Emillia to check Subaru. It's upon Felix being one of the top doctors in Lagunica, checking Subaru's body, that he would be shocked. What? Nya? Did that cat girl just say nya? Subaru would say. Subaru being confused. Felix would be having an aneurysm, looking at Emillia and Subaru and being shocked as he tries to explain what he's seeing and feeling. Emilia's it's like he has... It's like Subaru-kyun has 2 gates. What? Emillia would say. Felix would have no idea what he's sensing. It being like there's more than 1 gate within Subaru's body. No, it's like his whole body, in fact, is radiating magic. Like he's some sort of mob beast or something. Just, it was intense. Felix would tell Emillia that he's going to need more time to assess Subaru, saying just to bring Subaru with to the capital next time during the visit, so he can take a better exam of Subaru with his tools. Emillia would thank Felix, with Felix walking out of the building being so confused, wondering exactly what it was he had just seen. Subaru would have no idea what had just happened, asking Emillia why that cat girl just left. Cat? You mean Felix? You mean, oh, he's a boy. Wait, what? I mean, okay, if you say so. Somewhere off in another universe, we hear someone called Sukuna screaming in rage and fury. Plus bonus points if you get that reference. Anyway, back to the plot. Subaru would be begrudgingly accompanied by Emillia. It's not like Emillia doesn't like Subaru anymore or anything like that. She actually finds him amazing, seeing how he can direct people and just push his power through everything. It makes Emillia feel like she has more to learn herself, but that's not the point. Subaru is impulsive, and he has the power to back it up, meaning that if he decided to destroy a building or fight someone in the street, Emillia would have to deal with the consequences, which is why she had decided that Subaru would be accompanied by her at all times. Subaru in this timeline isn't exactly a simp for Emillia, so they have this weird sibling-like rivalry going on, with Emillia and Subaru, the two fighting and bickering with each other pretty often. Although they still respected each other for sure. Anyway, the fated day would come, and Subaru along with Emillia would leave with Rem for the capital, Rem waving goodbye as she would be staying at Roswaal's side. The three heading into the capital after a long journey, and heading towards the royal castle. It's here that actually something different would take place. Subaru would be willingly invited by Emillia to accompany him into the castle. Subaru beforehand already having told Emillia that if she makes him stay outside, then he's just gonna break down the door and make that Van Estrella guy come after him. Emillia, already imagining the chaos, would just simply allow Subaru to come with her, already beginning to get annoyed from Subaru's behavior as she has for the past couple weeks. Look, Subaru, you cannot, absolutely, in any way, embarrass me during this conference. Please, just don't say anything that would make you look stupid, okay? I'm bringing you with me so that I know you don't try and break down the castle door, because I know you can. So, don't do anything, okay? Subaru whistling, saying, yeah, I'll do that. Don't worry about it. Emillia would have tears running down her face, shaking Subaru, saying, he really means he will, right? As they enter into the castle gates. A few things here would stay the same, with Emillia being kissed on the hand by Julius. This would be something that makes Subaru uncomfortable, but he doesn't exactly know why. Subaru would walk over to Julius and Emillia and then whisper to Julius, asking where does he think that hand's been. Julius would be caught off guard, falling backwards by Subaru just being himself. Emillia would be looking at Subaru with the eyes. Subaru would whistle, standing back up saying never mind, agreeing to wait for Emillia to enter with Julius, who would, now having regained his composure, be eyeing up this strange looking butler, as he then escorts Emillia-sama into the room, where she had originally stopped in the original to contact Felix. Subaru, while waiting, would eventually see, of course, what had happened in the original timeline, with this weird girl getting attacked in an alleyway. Subaru being Subaru would step in with the three thugs trying to rob her, Subaru using a regular fist, just punching the three of them and knocking them out, telling them to leave people alone, okay? Go get a real job or something, as he walks away. This would be when Priscilla would get annoyed, asking who he is and why he intervened in her battle, saying this could have been easy, and she would have taken them down without a single issue. That his help was completely, unnecessarily, and useless. Huh? Subaru would say. Well, fine, if you want to deal with them, then you can fight them. Subaru walking back over and pointing at her, asking who she thinks she is, saying he just saved her ass. Priscilla would be, again, offended by this language, asking him who he thinks he is, the two of them getting into a bickering session. Subaru's eye would be twitching by the time Emillia comes out, saying, fine, have it your way, I'm done anyway, as he huffs back over to Emillia, who had seen him talking to Priscilla. Emillia would get quiet, asking what that was. Subaru would notice this change in normal temper with him, as he tells Emillia it was just some girl who he had saved from that alleyway. Emillia would turn towards Subaru, asking, really? As she was being completely serious. Rem would confirm to Emillia that she had seen what Subaru had done from the carriage, informing Emillia that Subaru had actually been arguing with that lady for the past 20 minutes. Emillia, upon receiving this information, would change her tone again, covering her face as she tries not to laugh, realizing what had happened, telling Subaru to come along with her. Subaru's still not getting the situation, as Priscilla would have a huffy face as Al would come by, asking what that was all about. The guy who is Priscilla's knight with the helmet on his head. She would say it was just some commoner who was annoying her. Flames now trickling down her hand, saying she'll get her revenge someday. Emillia, Rem, and Subaru would enter into the Great Hall, where all the candidates for the next king of Lagunica would be. Emillia taking her place among them. Subaru would be accompanying Roswaal's group, with Roswaal sitting next to Rem and Ram, his two maids, and Subaru sitting behind him as his butler. Roswaal having been able to easily get to the capital through flight just because he's one of the strongest country's mages, so for him he doesn't need to take that day of travel as long as he's going by himself. Subaru would not say anything, noticing Reinhard Van Astrea and that Julius guy who he had ticked off earlier. Julius noticing Subaru would give him a grin and wave, with Julius being repulsed by this vulgar behavior. As the meeting would begin, the old men who had been running the government until this point because of the lack of a king would begin debating each of the girls who were before them, who had all been candidates according to the selection's requirements from the dragon. When it had come to Emilia's time, they began talking about her half-elf status, people whispering among the crowds about her being a half-elf, being the Witch of Sin, the Witch of Envy, Satella. Subaru would sit there for a while with his superhuman hearing all the things being said about Emillia standing there and bearing it. Subaru would tighten his fist, noticing how Julius was just smiling through it, looking at all the knights who weren't doing anything. Emillia just having to take it. Subaru would stand up, yelling out for everyone to shut up, his loud, booming voice echoing throughout the hallway, Emillia looking up, having barely been able to hold back tears so far, whispering and thinking in her head for Subaru to stop it, to not do anything. The old men who were contemplating and talking about this status and status that, Subaru would tighten his fist, gritting his teeth, as he points forward, saying that if anyone in this room really wants to say all those terrible things about some poor girl just because of her race, how she was born, something she couldn't even control, then Subaru would turn around facing the audience who had been whispering these horrible things. Then you can take me on instead, huh? Subaru would go on saying, I'm not some knight or some righteous crap like that. But if you mess with my friends, Subaru would have shadows covering his fists as his eyes would be filled with rage. Then I'll take all of you on. It's at this point Julius would find the opportunity to take Subaru out of the room, saying he'll remove this nuisance. As Julius would attempt to grab Subaru's shoulder, Subaru would grab his hand fast as lightning, holding his wrist with a tight grip, saying that if Julius really wants to fight him, then let's have a proper duel then. Emillia would say nothing, looking at the ground, thinking this is exactly what she thought was going to happen. Subaru would turn, fearing Emilia's tears, as he then tells Emillia not to cry. These assholes aren't worth it. Subaru would walk out of the room with a majority of the knights accompanying him, as they would then head down to the underground dungeon, the place where Subaru and Julius had their original fight. Julius would throw down a sword to Subaru, saying that he's challenged them as honor of knights in order to prove that they are the ones protecting Lugunica, and that he, Julius, will not allow Subaru's vulgar words to continue impeding the royal selection. Subaru would smirk, picking up the sword, gripping the blade of his hand as he then bends it in half, tightening his fist as he smirks at Julius, saying to come at him. Julius would pull out his sword, saying that he's going to regret that as he tries to strike at Subaru with his own wooden blade. All the knights would be cheering Julius on, telling him to take this stupid kid out. Subaru would merely look up with a glance, looking at Julius as he says he's going to break him. I won't let anyone laugh at my friends. Subaru would catch the sword with a single hand, not even dodging it, as just with one arm he'd be able to block Julius's two-strike blow. Holding the sword with his grip, he'd feel splinters of wood as he breaks it in half with his fist, before throwing a punch at Julius's abdomen. Julius coughing as he gets sent flying back into the wall, all the knights gasping out for air, as the battle between Julius and Subaru would begin. Julius was sent flying into the wall. Having only expected to play with this kid who had dared to offend the Royal Assembly, he was shocked to find himself in this position. Having been completely knocked the wind out of, his sternum feeling shaky from the fists that Subaru had planted there, the entire stands of knights were outraged. A single punch having sent Julius flying across the entire room and slamming into the building. The actual building beginning to shake from the damage. Julius falling to the ground in a crater in the wall being left behind him from the impact. Subaru would hold his fist up to his chin, rubbing the dust off of the top of his fist with it, as he then spits to the side, telling Julius to get up. The knights in the stand would be booing and throwing things at Subaru, calling him a cheat, saying that he used some unfair advantage against Julius. Others would be cheering Julius on to kick this guy's ass, and put him in his place beneath the knights of Lugunica. While Subaru was downstairs having a party, Reinhardt would have not accompanied him there, already having an idea of what the outcome would be. But knowing Subaru's character enough from when they had first interacted, Reinhardt wasn't worried anyone was going to die. Too much. He wasn't quite sure at this point. Anyway, Reinhardt would be preoccupied with his own business as an Estrella, that being his family's backing of a new candidate for the royal selection. This being Felt. Felt having been proven by him last time when they were at the slums, that the dragon insignia would react to her, meaning she was proven worthy as a potential candidate for the king of Lugunica. Uncle Ram would have broken in to try and save Felt, after Subaru had left by this point, might I add, and would have caused a whole another commotion because most of the knights had left to go watch Julius's beatdown of Subaru. Julius supposed to be, of course, dominating over Subaru by this point, for his utter incompliance and actions against the royal court and all the royal knights who were there. However, the less precocious knights, and the ones who would actually care about their opinion and view as being nobles, who would want to continue as if though nothing had happened, would have stayed to watch the rest of the selection as normal. They would be the ones, including Reinhardt, to have to protect Felt when Ram would come storming in. And by Ram, I don't mean Ram as in Ram, like Rem's sister. I mean Old Man Ram, double M, big O. For those of you who don't know who that is, that's the guy who ran the slum outpost back where he was trading items and weapons and all the like before Elsa tried to, kill everyone in there. And I'm fairly sure he had survived since Subaru was there. Anyway, I digress. Back to the Julius on Subaru beatdown, quote-unquote. Julius will be swinging his sword at Subaru now, attempting to use more of his power and tapping into the spirit arts, not holding anything back after feeling the strength of that first blow. Subaru's love tap. Subaru would have slits in his eyes, golden flecks in them, This draconic trait is something that appears in all the Dragon Slayers throughout Fairytail when they get really serious. Subaru would be glancing blows from Julius' sword off of his fist, the knights booing every time that Subaru successfully parried against Julius' attacks. Julius would take a step back, Subaru also doing the same, as Julius would then use a ranged attack using a flame spirit. Julius getting actually aggravated by Subaru at this point, having tried to make this quick and painless. But he was beginning to realize this was going to be anything but. Julius would blast a flame towards Subaru, telling him that he should just give up and take his dignity while he still has it. Subaru would smirk, saying, "If there's anyone here who's going to be giving up." Subaru would then hold his hand out, as a shadow would envelop the entire flame, consuming it in darkness, and causing the sparks and embers to wither away, the light fading into nothingness, pure black. "I think you'll find the one who's going to be giving up this match first will be you." Subaru would then grab his fist with his hand, pulling it out in a straight line and swinging it, as the darkness he had manipulated would turn to a shining black sword. Subaru dulling the edge, not here trying to kill Julius, just teach a lesson to all these useless knights who were making fun of his friends. They couldn't possibly understand how much Emilia's appearances affected her. Appearances were something Subaru had given up a long time ago, but just because Emillia still cared, that meant that Subaru would care about her feelings. Subaru would not deny what he had heard. Subaru, under the feint of laughs and snickering in that room, he could hear, he could even feel the vibrations of her lip quivering on his skin, of Emillia being strong and holding back anything that she was feeling, trying to block it all out. The pain, the suffering, all of the memories she's had because of it. All of it. Subaru would take his left fist and punch into the ground, holding his black blade in the other hand, the ground shattering underneath his fist as he looks up, his eyes meeting Julius. "If this is what you think strength is, making fun of other people for no reason, flaunting your power, it sounds like it's about time for me to put you back all in your place. After all, you're fighting a dragon." From Julius's perspective, Julius could see a dark dragon following behind Subaru. Julius would begin to feel sweat trickling down the side of his face, his cheek, as he would swear that he could hear the screaming. No, the roar of a dragon. Julius wouldn't be holding back, saying Subaru's proven it to him switching to his iron blade, pulling it from his side, telling Subaru to come at him. Subaru moving off of the ground would cause it to turn to dust beneath his feet, as the roar, the sound of him coming, would have hit after his arrival, surpassing the speed of sound, his arms crossed as he slashes at Julius. Julius using spirit magic blocking the blow. The spirit magic and dragon slayer magic colliding would cause a huge explosion. Flames, ice, water, and wind, all mixing as tornadoes of magical power, would be spinning and destroying the entire underground dungeon and stadium. Knights in the background would actually begin getting hit, as they begin to pull out their swords to come after Subaru, saying this heresy has gone on for far too long. As everyone would then come at Subaru, Julius telling them to stay back, saying this is their duel, their fight. Julius would move forward, now taking the initiative to attack, swinging his sword down onto Subaru. Everyone breathing out a gasp as it seems Subaru would have taken the blade to his face from a side swing. Julius being worried he might have just killed Subaru, he then realized, as he looks down and sees his sword shaking, Subaru would have caught Julius' sword with his teeth. His teeth being harder and stronger than the steel that he was biting down on, Subaru would bite down, shattering the steel as he spits all the metal out. Subaru would then take this opportunity while Julius was caught off guard to throw a punch at Julius' arm, shattering it. Julius getting sent flying back and his sword clattering out of his hand to the ground. 20 minutes later, the end of the royal selection had arrived. This is when Emillia would get out of her seat and begin running towards that hallway where she had seen all the knights in Subaru go. Roswaal would be smiling and laughing, while Rem and Ram would wait at his side. Emillia trying to go and stop whatever was happening to Subaru right now, because he was trying to defend her. That idiot. Emillia would come running down the stairs and going into the dark hallway, as she'd see the door in front of her open and close. And standing there would be Subaru, laughing as he was walking out the door, with cuts, scrapes, wounds, and blood all over him, laughing as he shut the door, saying that was more fun than he expected. Emillia would be shocked, saying, Subaru? Subaru would turn to Emillia, saying, oh, you're here. I was just about to go back to the hall, but I sort of lost my shirt. Emillia would push past Subaru and look into the doorway, where she'd see an entire pile of knights, broken swords, and Julius laying on the ground holding his arm. Blood all over the stadium and the entire stands destroyed. Subaru saying that they were just having a little bit of a disagreement. This is where Emillia would say what she had said to the original Subaru, saying that he didn't have to prove anything, and that this was her fight, and that she was here for her royal selection. This is why she didn't want him to come with to begin with. Emillia would have all this spite and hatred in her voice, but unlike the original Subaru, who couldn't handle it, who had no social experience or skills, who felt worthless, this Subaru would simply stand there smiling with his eyes closed. This would only annoy Emillia even more, yelling at him to say something for what he's done here. Suddenly, Subaru's smile would drop, his eyes opening as he has now a serious look on his face, looking at Emillia. Subaru would slowly raise his hand, touching Emilia's left ear, Emillia being shocked, asking what is he doing? Subaru would just whisper under his breath, you heard it too, right? Subaru would drop his hand, saying that maybe you didn't want me to do it, but I'm not just gonna stand by and let people make fun of my friends. If it was you, Rem, or even Ram, I'm never gonna let the people that I care about ever again. Subaru's voice would catch in his throat, remembering that scene that he had come home to find himself powerless to the people he cared about being taken away from him. The gawkers and ongoers looking past, seeing the police sirens, reflections in his glass windows of his childhood home. Subaru would look at Emillia, saying that that's his conviction. Emillia would be shocked, not knowing how to respond to this. Something that Subaru had said would have resonated with her deeply, but she had no idea why. Emilia's memories of her childhood were all but completely gone. But when Subaru said that hollow sound in his voice, something rang true through her. Emillia would look down, saying she's not going to forgive him for this, saying that she's gonna... Emillia would turn from Subaru and start walking down the hall, stopping before she turns and says, I'm not happy with what you did, but thanks. Subaru had a little smile on his face before Emillia turned back around and said, and started walking off, saying he'll have to clean up after his own mess and apologize to everyone, or she's not going to let him come back to the mansion. Subaru would clasp his hands together, saying, well, if that's all I gotta do to set things right, I would have just started with that. Emillia would walk off as Subaru would turn back, looking at the pile of unconscious guys laying there in the big mosh pile in the stadium. As Subaru was about to turn, Reinhardt would be standing next to him. Well, looks like you had some fun in here. Well, if it isn't that red-haired guy, huh? Couldn't finish me off while I'm worn down and weak? Subaru would grab his arm, saying, you know, if you really come at me right now, I probably could still win. You know, make it a little fair for you. When Subaru says this, Reinhardt would get a huge grin on his face before he started giving a huge belly laugh, echoing throughout the whole room. Julius' eyes wincing as he sees Reinhardt laughing and holding Subaru's shoulder. Subaru would get pissed by this, holding his fist up, telling the red hair to come at him. While Reinhardt's laughing, Subaru would stop his assault with him and Reinhardt's banter before telling Reinhardt thanks. We go back to the scene where everyone was laughing at Emillia in the throne room. Something distinctly Subaru had noticed was that Reinhardt, this red-haired guy, didn't even have a smile on his face, just standing there stoically, watching it all around him. And that actually built a little bit of respect from Subaru, not giving in to the peer pressure of everyone around him, not conforming to society's roles and dictating who's good and who's bad. Maybe you're not some goody two-shoes after all. What was it again? It's Reinhardt. Subaru would give him a handshake, saying, well, I'll try to remember this time. Reinhardt. Well, I'll let you off the hook since I am feeling a bit tired, but just so you know, if you had decided to join them down here, you'd probably be ending up looking like them. Reinhardt would say that he would be careful to avoid that. Reinhardt would walk into the room before closing the door behind him, a blinding light encompassing him as he would use one of his divine protections, Subaru not having any idea what he is doing, with him wishing for a divine protection to allow him to heal others. A healing type of protection. Reinhardt would then walk out of the room as Subaru looks now back, seeing everyone in the room being healed. Subaru gawking at Reinhardt, asking what he just did. He just took all of his hard work away. Reinhardt would smile and laugh again, flicking back at Subaru, who would then have all of the light magic redirected to heal him. Huh? What? You just... God, you are so annoying. You're insufferable, you know that? They could have at least dealt with it for a little while, Subaru would grumble, as he and Reinhardt would walk down the hallway back together to climb the stairs and ascend back to the castle. Reinhardt would decide to lend Subaru a cloak from one of the knight's cabinets, saying that it looks good on him. Subaru would blush a little bit, saying he's just saying that, as he'd whistle, telling Reinhardt thanks for the clothes. Oh, yeah, before I forget. Subaru waved to Reinhardt, thanking him, saying he has to go and fulfill Lady Emilia's orders. Lady, huh? Reinhardt would say. I wasn't pegging you for the type to be one to use titles. Subaru would stop, saying, well, if he continues to want to be protecting his friends like this, then it'd probably be best for him to get the title of knight as soon as possible so none of these wannabes can show him up. Or at least, give them the dignity of saying that they didn't get beat by some random guy. Subaru would smirk. Maybe I'll become the Sword Saint. Reinhardt had a small smile on his face, saying that Subaru really is unpredictable. Once again grabbing the side of his dragon blade and feeling the sheath open. Once again being surprised that this Subaru Nautski is actually worthy of the dragon sword reed. Reinhardt would tell Subaru that the next time they come to the capital, he should have Emillia challenge Felt to a duel with their knights, saying that he'll gladly take Subaru on any time. Subaru would run back down to where all the other knights were, as he would then say sorry to each of them individually, telling them not to make fun of other people though, or he'll come back and beat them again. Julius would have this uncanny look on his face, surprised at how Subaru's tone and attitude changed so quickly. Subaru correcting him and saying that he's just fulfilling his, what's the word? My lady's orders, as you guys would say in the tights. Julius would sigh, giving in as he would take Subaru's hand, saying he's way stronger than he thought he was for being such a loudmouth. Subaru would raise an eyebrow, asking what that means. Subaru patting Julius's arm, saying heal up good, so that he can fight him again. Anyway, if you guys learned anything from this, it's don't look on someone based on their appearances. If you'd already known that, then this wouldn't have even happened to begin with. Subaru would turn his hand, waving as half of the knights would be confused, wondering if they are supposed to respect him for being able to take on half of the entire knight order, not to mention actually best Julius, who is a master in spirit arts and combat, or be angry at his tone and horrible manners, not to mention his considerable amount of abuse that he had done to one of the peacekeeping orders in the entire kingdom. In the scenes, behind the scenes, I'll say Reinhardt was the one to actually clear up all the issues that Subaru caused. For one, by saying that if the knights were more competent, then they could have actually defeated Subaru, now couldn't they? This pretty much shutting up all of them, including Julius. But that won't be the end of problems for Subaru. Subaru walking back to his room where he was supposed to be healing and resting his magic power so that Felix could actually heal him from the last time he had exuded all of his magic power to defeat two people who were hired assassins and an entire army of mob beasts, but had instead used even more magic and had now taken physical abuse, which had been healed physically at least by Reinhardt. Felix would throw a massive punch in the side of Subaru's head, his neck slowly turning as he asked what that's for. Felix saying that none of his patients are ever going to do that. Ever, if they want to be treated from him. Got it? You do that ever again, and I'll leave you to the wolves. Subaru would gulp, saying he's sorry. Emillia would be waiting for him in his room, asking if she had done as she said, saying she'll go ask Julius himself if it's true. Subaru would go on his knees, bowing and saying that he's sorry to Emillia, telling Emillia with a hushed voice that he had done exactly as she said, but those guys totally deserved it. Some of them were total assholes. Emillia would step down Subaru's head, asking what is he thinking. Subaru thinking inside himself and wondering if this is going to awaken something in him. Emillia saying his punishment is that he's going to have to stay here and do nothing for the next 2 weeks. That means no coming back to the mansion, just resting, and when you come back, Ram had suggested this for you. You will be in charge of all of the cleaning for all of the bathroom facilities in the mansion for an entire month. Subaru, looking at the carpet, would begin to be considering, or I should say reconsidering his actions. Emillia would say that Ren will be staying by Subaru's side until he's recovered, saying that Felix is going to perform some sort of test on him for a while to find out what's going on with his gates, and only after that's completed will I forgive you. Subaru would say, "Yes, ma'am," as Emillia would stand up saying she's leaving, walking out the door, and just as she's about to close it saying, "That was pretty cool though," as she walks out, being impressed once again by Subaru's sheer power and ridiculously strong-headedness. Subaru would smile saying it was definitely worth it, seeing Emillia smile instead of crying. That's how it's supposed to be. Subaru would lay on his bed looking up smiling, thinking that today was a fun day. Little though would Subaru and the rest of the Emillia camp know what threat was slowly approaching towards the Roswaal estate, approaching its clutches around Emillia. That, of course, being the witch archbishop and the threat known as the White Whale. So, like I said, Subaru had been admonished by Emillia, who was, for one, embarrassed by his actions, but also, for some reason, pleased. Emillia felt like Subaru in some way had shown her a kindness that she had not been given by the people of Lagunica. That, of course, being his sign of friendship. Now, she didn't exactly appreciate the way he went about it, which was beating the crap out of everyone who was there, but that was in the past now. We begin our story today with Rem whispering into Subaru's ear, "Get the hell up!" Subaru would sit straight up, bolting up as he grabs the blankets that had been covering him. "Oh, Rem, it's just you. I swear I thought I had something evil sitting next to me." Rem would simply start whistling and look off into the distance, telling Subaru that Crush and Felix are waiting downstairs with breakfast. She would begin to walk down the stairs, with Subaru now dressing himself and heading down following after Rem. Once Subaru had descended the stairs, making it down to where the breakfast was being held, Subaru would then have a small conversation with Crush and Felix. Felix asking Subaru how his gaits are feeling, saying that he's one of the fastest healing people he's ever worked with. "Yeah, Crush, it's pretty amazing. I've only had him here for like 3 days, and his gait's pretty much completely healed. It's astonishing, to put it lightly." Subaru would laugh, with him remembering how he'd been sucking on shadows in order to absorb more magic power to hurry up the process. Like I established in prior parts, Subaru is one of the people in this world who has access to 2 gates, that being his main gate, which is the second origin for this world. For those of you guys who don't know what the second origin is, if you watch Fairytail, basically, it's an origin of magic within a person's body. In ReZero, that's called a gate. So, Subaru is a person who possesses 2 gates, having awakened his second origin after being teleported to the world of ReZero. The second gate for Subaru being the regular gate for people in this world. So basically, when Felix is saying that his gate's been healed, he's talking about Subaru's magic gate he's been using with shadow magic from this world. It's kind of convoluted, but it makes sense if you think about it. Anyway, Crush would be impressed with Subaru's speed and recovery, making some small talk and chatting with both Rem and Subaru over the next hour or so. Eventually, as the sun was climbing over the capital, Subaru would pull himself up, the wooden chair scratching across the floor as he pushes it back in, making a small screeching sound. Subaru would state that he's heading over to the old man's place, saying that it's time for training. Subaru would run off, with Rem chasing close behind, telling him not to go so fast. Subaru would eventually arrive at the training grounds, where he, outside of Crush's mansion where he'd be staying, would see Wilhelm waiting for him. Wilhelm would smile, seeing Subaru run up so earnestly, grabbing one of the wooden swords on the ground, asking if they're ready to get started. Since Subaru was so bored while waiting for his gate to be healed, Felix had decided to introduce him to Wilhelm. Wilhelm being of Van Estrella, one of the relatives of the Sword Saint, and the current Sword Saint, Reinhardt, who Subaru, if you've forgotten, is very interested in taking down in a sparring match. So, anyway, Felix had introduced Subaru with Wilhelm, Subaru deciding that it could be pretty fun to try and pick up a sword with that little bit of time and see how far he could get with it. Since Subaru can manifest his shadows into physical weapons, this would actually be pretty beneficial for him anyway, so it would be pretty fun. And him and Wilhelm get along pretty well. "Alright, old man, are you ready?" Subaru would get into his position, holding both hands on his blade. Wilhelm would nod, taking his own position, with one hand on his sword and his other hand back, a one-handed sword-style position. Subaru would lunge forward, using his back foot to push off the ground at a fast amount of speed. The wind ripping through his hair, his eyes almost gleaming in a flash of light as he swings at Wilhelm. Wilhelm would dodge out of the way using a parry as he parries Subaru's strike back towards him, sliding his own sword across Subaru's before pointing it towards him and jabbing forward. Subaru would quickly take his own sword back, using his second hand to hold the blade to block the blow, the pointed jab from Wilhelm being blocked by the main point of the wooden blade on Subaru's end. Subaru would now be sent back, now taking a knee to the ground and pulling himself back up, switching to a one-handed sword style. As he moves forward, Subaru would ball his other hand to a fist, throwing a feint. Wilhelm would just step back before trying to slice down Subaru's arm, but before he could, Subaru would then take his other arm and jab with the wooden sword towards Wilhelm with a quick strike. This would be, unfortunately, Subaru's downfall here. Wilhelm would disarm Subaru, now taking his own blade and slamming it down Subaru's, which without his other hand would be far too weak with just one hand, sending the wooden blade sprawling across the ground and Wilhelm pointing the wooden sword at Subaru's neck. Game over. Subaru would fall back on the ground saying, I thought I was so close this time too. Man, you're just way too good. I really gotta practice. Emillia said I have to stay here at least another 2 weeks. I'm gonna beat you without using magic at all by then. Subaru would now jump back up, pointing at Wilhelm. Trust me, man, you're going down. Wilhelm would smile before placing his blade on the ground and clapping, saying Subaru's gotten much more clean with his sword strikes, saying he can clearly tell that Subaru's been putting effort in behind the scenes. Subaru would pull his hands behind his head, smirking as he says, well, I have used some swords a few times before, so it's not, like, that strange. Come on, you don't gotta compliment me so hard. Subaru would scratch his cheek, blushing. Rem would clear her throat, asking Subaru if there was anything else they had to attend to today before heading back to Crush's place. Subaru would actually have nothing left to do, but he would offer, saying if there's any groceries she wants to get, that he wouldn't mind helping carry them. So they'd head out into town, Subaru waving to Wilhelm goodbye and saying he'll see him tomorrow. This cycle of everyday life living with Felix and Crush would go on for the next 2 weeks, even after Subaru's gait had healed, with 2 weeks being the promised time Felix had said to Emillia, saying how long it would take, but having been severely outmatched by Subaru's recovery speed. So effectively they were all just living together and having a good time. Well, eventually once the 2 weeks had passed and Subaru had been enjoying his sword training, as the final day of the 2 weeks was approaching, Subaru would ask Wilhelm if he would like to have one last spar together. Wilhelm would laugh, saying if he really truly believes that he's outdone his own master at this point, then he might as well use a real blade. Wilhelm would say that if he truly wishes to challenge him in a gentlemanly duel, then he'll be doing so in an arena. Wilhelm would laugh, just messing with Subaru a little bit, since Wilhelm knew this would cause him some frustration. Subaru would sigh, saying that he's going to come back to the capital for the next time Emillia is heading into town, saying for Wilhelm to be ready and keep training by then. The two having a handshake, as Wilhelm wishes Subaru good luck on his way back to the Roswaal estate. With Rem and Subaru taking one of the ground dragons in a carriage, Rem and Subaru preparing for the long journey back to the Roswaal estate. After traveling for almost half a day, Subaru was getting, restless to say the least, asking Rem when they're going to get there. Rem would say that they still have about half of the journey left, but as they're driving, nightfall seems to be approaching closer, and for some reason, a strange, ominous mist is beginning to build on the horizon. Before that, though, there would be a circle of carriages that Subaru and Rem would decide to see if they could join for the night. This being a caravan of merchants where Subaru was destined to meet, best boy of the series, aka the friendly merchant, Otto. Subaru and Rem would ask if they could join in on the caravan, saying that they won't be doing anything to make any trouble. The fellow merchants agreeing, saying with nightfall coming, it's better to have more people together anyways out here, if any mob beasts were to appear. Subaru would laugh, patting Rem on the back, saying that if some mob beasts did appear, the two of them were way too much overkill to handle that. As the travelers would exchange stories of their journeys, Otto would talk about his misfortune where he had bought up a ton of oil. Showing all of the barrels in the back of his carriage, the other merchants would laugh, Subaru asking Rem why they're all laughing. Rem would explain to Subaru that with the cost of oil declining with recent discoveries of more oil reserves, Otto's investment was a poor choice, making the cost of natural crude oil like this cheaper. Unfortunately, unlike our world. But anyway, Otto would be miserable with his purchase of so much oil, with anyone asking if any of the other merchants would like to buy some off of him, for a reduced price, of course. As they be talking, the mist that had been on the horizon before was beginning to slowly encircle the camp, and Rem and Subaru would both smell something. Hey, Rem? You smell that, right? Of course, it smells like danger. Immediately, a long billowing howl would go flying across the plains. This eerie sound causing chills to crawl down the spines of all the merchants sitting there. What is that? This mist. Merchants begin to realize what's going on. It's the white whale. Here? That's not possible. But it's so close to the capital. Then what's going to... The fog would thicken. Subaru would grab Rem and transform himself into shadows, pulling her to the ground, with Rem being terrified of this strange feeling, not being able to breathe. The fog began sweeping over the whole caravan, absorbing people as they disappeared. Subaru was only being spared with Rem at this point because he had made himself intangible. The fog trying to grip Subaru through his magic, Subaru could feel his magic power slowly draining from this weird fog. Whatever it was. Subaru would turn left, noticing that someone had grabbed onto him, as we see Otto screaming under the shadow for dear life, telling them to get the hell out of here, and otherwise looking just fairly terrified. The fog slowly became thinner. Subaru would rematerialize everyone with his shadow magic, telling them that they need to get out of there now. Otto would run to his caravan, with Subaru and Rem doing the same with their carriage, and the two now driving off in the same direction, with Subaru telling Otto to come with them to the Roswaal estate, that they'll fix this all later and see what's going on. As they're driving, suddenly, the whale would come driving right next to Subaru in the carriage. Subaru would turn left, looking to see where Rem was, but she had just simply disappeared. Rem? Rem? Otto would turn, asking Subaru what he's talking about. Subaru getting scared. What do you mean? Where's Rem? Subaru would turn, looking at the side of the carriage. Did she fall off? Is she... Otto would tell him to focus, saying that the fog's getting thicker, and there's no such person named Rem, and there hasn't been this entire time. Huh? Subaru would be horrified, wondering what he's talking about. Suddenly, Subaru would see it. Otto, get the hell down right now! Otto would dive over to Subaru's carriage, his own carriage getting destroyed by the whale, and another loud echoing roar from the maw beast. The massive creature would echo across the plains, its rage now centered on Subaru for some reason. Subaru would breathe in as he uses a shadow dragon breath, blasting the whale in the eye and sending it sprawling back to the side and into the sea of fog. What the hell was that? Otto would say. Everything's gone. My life is ruined. My entire savings was in that oil. Everything's over. The whale began recircling against them, with Otto now again wondering why. Why was this happening? As he turns, noticing Subaru once more. Maybe the thoughts through Otto's mind would come to one conclusion, realizing that it must be Subaru that this whale's targeting. While Subaru is looking off to the side, telling him that he thinks it's clear, Otto would kick Subaru off of the wagon. Subaru would fall to the ground, rolling as he asked what the hell that was for. Otto now rushing off into the sea of fog, laughing and telling him to do his best. Otto's mind completely corrupted by fear. Subaru would just sigh, saying that he has to come back here to look for Rem anyway. As he walks off towards the center of the fog, the white whale would suddenly appear. More fog getting thicker and thicker around Subaru. Subaru's mind began to get hazy, wondering where is... PTSD intensifies. Anyway, Subaru would wake up once again, now sitting in his bed, holding the blankets as Rem had just whispered in his ear. Rem? Oh, thank God, you're okay. Subaru would turn, looking at the room and his surroundings. We're back in Crush's house. But we were just... Subaru remembered what had happened before at the mansion all those weeks ago, when Subaru had consumed all those shadows, slowly getting bigger until he had... Subaru would clutch his neck. Subaru, are you alright? Subaru would pull himself up, saying he's fine, he's just hungry. Saying for Rem to leave the room so he can get dressed. Rem would nod, now noticing the small increase in Subaru's stench of the witch, wondering if something was happening. Rem would choose to not comment on this though, and would simply leave per Subaru's request. Subaru would maintain this fake exterior until Rem now closed the door, walking down the stairs. Subaru had been coughing, dropping to his knees on the floor. remembering what had happened with him and Otto and Rem. Oh my god. I'm good. That was just really disorientating. For those of you who don't know, whenever Subaru dies in the world of ReZero, this is the original light novel and canon, the way that it works is there's no like respawn point. Like, he doesn't understand that he's switching timelines. So for him, he was just walking into the fog and suddenly was in his bed. It is a constant stream of time. So Subaru was incredibly disorientated and dizzy and just not having a great time. Not to mention, of course, the natural Dragon Slayer's weakness, which is vehicles. Subaru until this point had been riding on top of their ground dragon, only being forced to get onto the wagon unsteadily when Rem had disappeared. So naturally, when Otto pushed him off, it's not like he could do anything or sense it since he was so dizzy. For anyone who's wondering, yes, pretty much anytime I'm saying that Subaru and Rem or Subaru and Emillia or anything where Subaru's taking travel, just assume that Subaru is riding on top of the ground dragon because motion sickness and dragon slayers. So not a great mix for travel. Luckily, that issue is resolved if the dragon slayer is riding a pet or friend or someone who's considered a comrade, as is shown with Natsu and Happy in original Fairytail. Anyway, now that misconvolution's been cleared up, I can go forward. Subaru would recover from his motion sickness, now pulling himself up and realizing that he's okay, taking a few deep breaths in, and after cleaning up for himself and getting dressed, would head downstairs saying sorry he's a little late, beginning breakfast with Crush, Felix, and Rem again. Realizing that this is the third day from 2 weeks ago when his gait had pretty much almost been healed. It's at this point that Subaru would begin to ask Crush some questions. These questions being if Crush had ever seen a maw beast that had looked like a huge white creature that had fog surrounding it. It's after Subaru would begin learning about the white whale, both from him inquiring with Felix, Crush, and Wilhelm. Wilhelm giving in and telling Subaru around the second week after sword training again, telling Subaru that he's improved leaps and bounds since their first training. Wilhelm would give in and eventually tell Subaru about what had happened with his wife, the previous sword saint, and how it was his life mission to kill the beast, the white whale. He would explain to Subaru that the white whale doesn't leave any bodies behind. Subaru would think back to the night of the whale attack, remembering everything that had happened, trying to think of any distinct location that he could remember. He'd remember that there was this huge tree in the distance, but he didn't know what the name of it was. I'll have to think about it later. Subaru would thank Wilhelm for everything and would leave a few days earlier than when he had originally planned, telling Rem that he knows it hasn't been 2 weeks yet, but if they arrive there early, they can hang out in the village for a while and just be there on time so they don't have to spend a day traveling. This was Subaru's excuse, at least. Rem, of course, would give in to Subaru's, well, unreasonable demands, and Crush and Felix would be a bit surprised. Wilhelm also surprised that Subaru was leaving early. Once again, Crush would thank Subaru and Rem for everything they had done while they were here, and all of the good times they had, gifting them the carriage and ground dragon and telling them to tell Emillia that her end of the deal is complete and that their transaction is ended. Rem would thank Crush along with Subaru, saying goodbye to Crush and farewell, as the two would head off now 2 days early, now heading back to the Roswaal estate. This time, as Subaru would be getting closer to that large tree on their way back to the Roswaal estate, there would be no fog. There was no whale in sight this time. He had effectively gone out of the zone of the white whale's attack. However, as Subaru and Rem were approaching the mansion and the Roswaal estate, Subaru would begin to realize that not all is as well as it seems, beginning to sense some prickling sensation on his skin, getting closer and closer to Arlem Village. Hey Rem, be careful, there's someone watching us. Subaru would catch it in time as a blade was just about to slash through their ground dragon's neck, trying to kill him and the ground dragon he was riding in the same process. Subaru would catch the blade and flick it back in the direction it came from, a body limping out of the tree line and falling to the ground. A circle of these weird people all dressed in black with eye holes cut out on these hoods would appear encircling them and the carriage. Subaru would grit his teeth asking who the hell they are, the only answer he'd get being silence. Subaru would tighten his fists as they look like they're ready to fight as well. Subaru would laugh, saying he's not in the mood for playing around, saying he came home to see Emillia and make sure that everything was going okay back at home base. So, get the hell out of my way. Subaru would then pump his fistful of shadow magic, leaping atop off of his ground dragon and throwing his fist into one of the cultists' head. A crunching sound being heard as they go flying into a tree, snapping their spine as they fall to the ground. Rem would then summon her mace and chain, beginning to fight them off as well. Splatters of blood painting the ground as Rem and Subaru would decimate the cultists, with the cultists not even being able to even fight back. Subaru now taking out the ones in the front, and Rem the ones in the back. At this point, Petelgeuse would be certainly aware that someone had entered into the vicinity, and would begin his march towards this new disturbance of the event. Subaru and Rem would let their ground dragon go to flee if there was any more, heading back the direction it had come. Subaru's fist would tighten, taking in a deep breath, Rem smelling it just a few seconds after Subaru did. The village would be stained with blood, the corpses of the villagers now littering the entire area. Subaru would be furious, his eyes filled with rage, asking who the hell dare? Who the hell did this? Subaru would see Petra's body laying among the pile of mutilated corpses. The children weren't even spared. Rem would remember what her and Ram had went through, their own village being razed to the ground by witch cultists themselves. As Subaru was now stirred with rage, someone would be coming up from behind them. Subaru would not even look over his shoulder, his eye flicking over. His eyes now golden, with the slits in them having narrowed. Oh, I see. You've already found the beginning appetizer, Betelgeuse would say. Appetizer? Can I take that to mean that you haven't attacked the mansion yet? Subaru would say, his voice eerily steady. Yes, you understand. Oh, I like the feeling around this one. Oh, it's so troublesome. My brain trembles. Rem would be disgusted with him, along with Subaru. Subaru would turn one foot looking around, as he would see these giant, massive, dark hands growing out of this strange guy. His green, matted hair appearing like that of a corpse, greasy and unkempt. Betelgeuse would be scratching at his head. Now, after saying his signature line, Subaru would waste no time. Subaru would rush forward, kicking off using magic power in his feet, rushing forward at inhuman speeds. Betelgeuse would still be too distracted by his own insanity to even recover fast enough, as one of his hands would automatically try to block the attack, the unseeing hands. Subaru would not be having any of it. Subaru grit his teeth, sucking in, as he absorbed all of the shadow from the unseen hand, punching Betelgeuse in the gut and sending him sprawling, spit flying as Betelgeuse's hands would go with him. How did you manage to block my ultimate power? My love eyes. He could barely continue speaking. Subaru would then move forward with a kick, kicking Betelgeuse in the teeth, with shadow magic covering his foot. His boot now going directly through Betelgeuse's skull and crushing to the ground. Subaru would continue pounding on Betelgeuse's now obviously destroyed and mangled body. But he didn't know that Betelgeuse had already switched his souls to another one of the fingers. Subaru would get up, his hands covered in blood, as he tells Rem that there might be more of them. Rem's lips were quivering, hoping that her sister as well as everyone in the mansion was alright, with Rem and Subaru now leaving together and running off towards the mansion. Suddenly, a massive black hand would come flying out of nowhere, slamming into Rem and smushing her into a tree, one of her legs snapping from the impact. Subaru's eyes would narrow again as he winds them. Rem! He used his shadow dragon magic to create a sword out of shadows, slashing down and severing the hand, causing it, the one that had been pushing Rem into the tree bark, to now effectively disappear, now having been cut from Betelgeuse's sin. Oh, you can see them, you can. Then that must mean you must be one of us. Ah, you must be Pride. Yes, that makes sense. Pride. Subaru would be shocked. He's still alive? But how? Turning around, he would see a strange girl wearing that same outfit from before, with the voice and speaking patterns of that guy he had just slaughtered. Betelgeuse would laugh, seeing the shocked look on his face, saying that things are only going to get more fun from here. As Subaru and Rem were running towards the mansion, Rem would get slammed into a tree, her right leg making a snapping sound as it breaks on impact against the tree. Rem would let out a small scream from the pain and the sudden impact, knocking the wind out of her and her breath being taken. Subaru would swipe, turning the shadow across from his body and mimicking it into a blade, cutting the black hand, causing Rem to fall to the ground and not get pressed into the tree any harder.
Oh, I see, you can see them. That means you must be. Yes, you must be Pride.
I completely destroyed his body back there. How is he?
As Subaru turns back around, he would see a girl wearing the same outfit as the other witch cultists. Subaru would be wondering what the hell's going on. At least, that's where he was left off last part 7 for What If Subaru Was a Dragon Slayer, aka Shadow Dragon Subaru. Welcome to part 8 for What If Subaru Was a Shadow Dragon Slayer. If you guys have not been caught up, make sure to go back to the prior parts, or your prior part if you're still somewhat familiar with the series, and make sure to get yourself acquainted with what's going on. Anyway, let's hop right back into the action, with Subaru now confronting one of the fingers Betelgeuse had taken over. That, of course, being the supplementary body Betelgeuse had chosen after Subaru in the last part had completely decimated his original body.
So you're still alive, huh? Well, this time I'll make sure to break every bone in that damn body.
Subaru would remember what he had seen, Petra's flaming, burned corpse, that of all the villagers and all the kids. Subaru's fist would tighten, his teeth now grinding.
I take it back. Actually, this is perfect. I still haven't gotten all of that off from before anyway.
Subaru would look up, his eyes aflame.
Yes, that's the look. That's the look. Perfect. Come on, show me how much love she's given you, Pride.
I don't know why the hell you're calling me that. Doesn't matter. You won't have a mouth in a few minutes anyway. While Betelgeuse continued to talk, suddenly Subaru would blitz past him with speed, turning the lower half of his body into shadows before re-submerging it back to the surface, basically increasing his speed without sacrificing his physical attack. Subaru would slash with that shadow blade he made earlier, cutting Betelgeuse's throat. The splurt of blood would spray out before beginning to fill up the now empty hole where the neck had been. Blood began to gurgle through Betelgeuse's new mouth, now the words that had been rising through his throat being stuck, slowly drowning in a pool of his own blood. Subaru would return the sword back to Shadows, now covering his right fist with shadows, using a Shadow Dragon Claw, slashing at Betelgeuse's back, and a nice crunching sound being made from his, or I guess I should say her, spine. The body of Betelgeuse would go flying, ripping into shreds as it sprays across the courtyard of the entrance up to the mansion. Subaru would turn, looking to Rem, running over as he helps her up. Rem, are you awake? Rem would be unconscious. Subaru would try to wake her up, seeing her leg snapped at a really uncomfortable angle. Rom is going to kill me, he'd be thinking. Fuck. Subaru would lift Rem in a princess-style carry, now hoisting her up and beginning to run up towards the mansion. If I'm right, that guy shouldn't have attacked at this place. At least, not yet. After Subaru had brought Rem inside, Subaru would leave her laying against the door, screaming out into the mansion if anyone can hear him that Rem's laying here. He would whisper to Rem that he'd be right back. Opening the door and walking outside, his black cloak draped over his shoulders, only exemplifying his status as a Shadow Dragon Slayer. Subaru would have a different look in his eyes, the look of a hunter. I know that he's not dead, but I'm gonna make sure of it. If he's smart, he would have begun to run by now. Subaru would track Betelgeuse's scent through the forest, moving at the speed of shadows. Another finger would appear. Subaru would instantly slaughter it, Betelgeuse not being able to even say a word, as Subaru would go around murdering and destroying the bodies of every single finger that he could find. The witch cultist bodies littered the floors of the forest, now slowly rotting and nourishing the plants to come anew. Subaru had finally found it, the last finger. Subaru would smirk, saying this isn't even going to make him feel any better. Not after beating him so many times. Not after seeing that. Disgusting. I can't believe you can even live with yourself. Subaru's bloodlust had been tamed by that of disgust, realizing the filth of a human being that Betelgeuse was, taking no joy in any of it at this point. But what Subaru didn't know is that Betelgeuse had already achieved a new plan, begging Subaru to come and finish him. And Subaru would happily oblige. Shadow Dragon, roar. A black tornado of wind, darkness, and magical power would completely cover Betelgeuse, erasing his body atom by atom, until nothing remained but bones, fading to dust. Subaru would then lick his lips, saying, all those shadow hands were disgusting, by the way. As Subaru turns around, deciding to head back to the mansion, while walking, he'd begin to feel weird. His left hand began to twitch, his right eye twitching. What the hell? Subaru would begin to hear voices in his head. What the hell is... As Subaru's consciousness was beginning to fade, he could hear someone else's voice coming out of his body.
Ah, perfect. This body will suit me well. It has so much love. I can feel it. My power is so strong.
Subaru would realize it a moment too late, realizing that his body was being taken over by this bastard. He somehow had used some sort of magic or spirit arts, something, to take his consciousness from his body. Subaru was slowly losing control of his body and limbs. As he was approaching the mansion, Subaru was focusing all of his magical power into one spot. Betelgeuse would whisper into his mind, the little that remained,
"There's no point in resisting. I already have everything I need."
Subaru would, with the last bit of his willpower, use all of his magical power in a final burst.
Shadow. What are you blabbering on about now? Dragon. You're getting annoying. King.
Huh?
Penance.
A roar of magical power and energy, a roar of a dragon would emerge. The ripping howling of a black hole opening, beginning to suck everything into its path.
No.
Betelgeuse would be sucked inside of the black hole, inside of the penance of the Shadow Dragon King. Subaru would judge his own sins, deciding to destroy both of them together. Subaru's body would be ripped apart, Subaru releasing all of his second and main origin's power in a single burst, ripping through his body, spirit, and soul. This basically destroying Betelgeuse, but him in the process. It's at this point that he'd begin to hear a cry. Why? He'd think. Why is she crying? In front of him was a beautiful silver-haired girl. Her eyes a bright purple, but her face, although she was beautiful, was filled with misery. I don't understand. Why do you cry for me? Subaru's whispers would fade off into the night, before suddenly he'd hear a familiar sound. Waking back up, in that very same bed, back at Crush's mansion. Rem be whispering in Subaru's ear.
Subaru?
Huh? Rem! Subaru would sit back up, realizing that he's alive. Wow, and that weirdo's out of my head. I never thought I'd be doing that. God, I'm so weak. Subaru would punch himself in the head, thinking that he really had to go killing himself in order to get rid of that guy. Damn it. Subaru would lay back in his bed, annoyed at himself. What am I gonna do now? If we don't hurry, the whole village is gonna die. And Rom and Emillia, I don't even know what happened to them. It was getting pretty cold in the mansion too. I wonder if Puck has them holed up somewhere. Subaru began mumbling, now gnawing on his finger, thinking about what he's gonna do next. Subaru, are you okay? Rema could smell the scent of the witch on him having grown stronger, wondering what happened while he was sleeping. Subaru would sit straight up saying, "Oh, nothing, he just had a bad nightmare." Yeah, a nightmare. That's all. That's actually when this Subaru began to consider something. Actually, is it even possible that all of those times were they forced to live on without me? This horrifying reality would hit Subaru like a truck. Subaru would grind his teeth, promising he's never going to rely on that power. He's not going to die ever again. Needless to say, Subaru's pretty damn fired up. Subaru would hop out of bed telling Rem that he has some training to do. Rem, tell Crush that I have something I want to talk to her about. We'll be leaving in 3 days, alright? Subaru would have an oddly serious look about him. Rem, although confused, would nod, saying that although his gate's not even healed yet, Subaru must have a very good reason to want to leave so early. Rem would say she's gonna go tell Crush that Subaru wanted to speak with her. Subaru would nod, now getting out of bed and pulling on his clothes. Looking out the window onto the Capitol, Subaru would be organizing the things in his mind. The white whale, witch cultists, the village, and a body hopper. Subaru would grit his teeth, realizing that he's come to a certain conclusion. Gah, I really don't want to do that, but it might be my only option. Subaru would decide to head out, telling him he's going out for a small walk. I would be a bit confused, but say for him to come back safely. Really wondering what's going on with him today. I think it's time I pay Julius a little visit, Subaru would think. In our next scene, we see Julius standing in his office with Subaru and Dogaza, bowing on all fours, begging Julius to accompany him on a trip back to the Roswaal estate. Julius would think he's mocking him, telling him to get the hell out of there. Subaru would grind his teeth, saying he doesn't enjoy being here any more than he does. But, regardless of that, Subaru would sigh. I think I need your help. Remind me again why the hell I'd ever want to help you, Julius would say, the bandage still on his cheek from when Subaru had decimated the entire Night Order. Subaru would sigh, saying he already apologized for that, right? Can't we let bygones be bygones? Julius's eye would twitch, thinking, this guy is so insufferable, his fist tightening. Why the hell do you need my help anyway? You're plenty capable on your own. Subaru would explain a bit of the situation, saying that there's someone that he's going to have to end up fighting, who seems pretty damn tricky, to be honest. And, well, you see, Julius, when I was thinking of rat bastards who know exactly about that kind of technique, you were just the first person that came to my mind. Subaru would be thrown out of Julius's office, plopped on the ground with an innocent look on his face while the door closed behind him. Subaru would scratch on the door like a cat. "Aw, come on, I was just kidding. Please, come on, help me. I'll give you a treat." Julius would crack the door open. Did you just suggest you give me a treat like I'm a pet? Well, Julius, it's quite an honest mistake, you see. When I see you licking all of those girls' hands all the time, it's easy to see why I'd think that you're a dog. Julius would promptly slam the door, saying he's never helping Subaru in his entire life. "Aw, come on." Over my dead body. Subaru would sigh. "Look, Julius, I really do need your help. Please, at the very least for Emilia's sake." The voice behind the door would go quiet, with Julius thinking, whatever. He'll probably just stand here all day bothering me if I don't go. Julius would open the door, asking what the hell Subaru wants. Subaru would smirk, his jagged teeth showing. "So, you can use the spirit arts, right?" It's later that same day when Subaru would have his meeting with Crush that Rem had set up for him. "You know your gate's not healed yet," Crush would comment, sipping from her wine glass. Yeah, I know. It'll heal on its own in like 2 days anyway. Now, down to business. I'm not exactly great at these dinner table conversations or schemes. I'm just gonna get straight to the point. I need something from you, and I might have something you want in return." Crush would sigh, having expected him to be a little more tactful than that at least. Subaru would point his finger directly at Crush, saying, "I think I know a location of something that you might be interested in." "Oh, you think so?" "Yep. I'm pretty sure that I know the location of the white fish. I mean whale. The white whale." Crush would stare at Subaru intently for a second, a surprised look coming across her face. Well, you're either insane, delusional, or you truly believe you know the location. Huh. Interesting. Well, let's just say that, for the sake of the argument, that you do, in fact, know where and when the white whale would appear. What sort of exchange would you want to trade that information anyway? Subaru would smirk, saying, "Well, I've been hoping that after the subjugation of the white whale, I could borrow your guys' help to defend a few things while I go clean up with my friend Julius. See, there's going to be an attack on Emillia and the Roswaal estate. So, I'm aware you're not exactly Emilia's friend or anything, but you did do her the favor by having me come here. I assume you don't hate her just because she's a half-elf or whatever everyone always says." Crush would close her eyes thinking about the matter. While she was contemplating Subaru's idea, Subaru would quickly shake his hands around, panicked, hoping that she wouldn't decline, saying that he'll also help take out the white whale, so it shouldn't be too difficult and there shouldn't be too many injuries or anything. Crush would then asking if Subaru's so confident that he could defeat the white whale by himself, why does he even require her aid with that other matter to attend? Subaru would have a small memory, remembering while he was walking towards the mansion the sound of the crushing of Rem's leg. Subaru would look down, looking at his own fist. Not everyone is as powerful as I am. And I'm not saying they have to be, or should be. Subaru would see Petra in his mind's eye. But I'm only strong enough to go on the offensive. I can protect myself and maybe a few other people, but that's about it. I can't. Subaru would clutch his own chest, remembering when he came home from school, the day he had met Skiadrum. Remembering when he had found his parents murdered. I can't protect the people closest to me, just by myself. I just want to make sure that everyone survives. That's all. I'm not asking for any of your help with the actual attack. I just want your forces to defend the village and the Roswaal mansion while I go out for it myself. Besides, I already have a plan to take that creep down. Subaru would feel tears welling up in his eyes. Why am I crying? Subaru would rub the tears away. Oh, that's why. 'Cause I feel just as weak and powerless as back then, huh? Subaru would breathe in, before bowing to Crush. Please, just help me protect my friends. That's all. She would sigh, saying that if he wasn't bluffing or lying somehow about that white whale incident, then she'll help out, asking him when the time of the white whale's arrival will be. Subaru's head would shoot up, smiling, his face now golden, the tears still running down his face. Yeah, of course! Over the next week before the attack of the white whale, Subaru would explain to Crush, Wilhelm, and the rest of the Crush camp the plan, explaining that first will come the white whale and then they'll move on towards the Roswaal estate to protect from the witch cult. Subaru would explain that there was a huge tree that Rem told him based off what he had seen. It was likely that he was talking about Flugel's tree, the massive tree on that highway where many merchants and other travelers go. That open field, huh? Crush would say. Normally that'd be an ideal place for a battle like this, but with so much area to move, the white whale will have no trouble getting through our forces, or hell, just even escaping attacks. Within this week of prep time, aside from just getting resources and troops ready for the assault on the white whale, Wilhelm and Subaru would keep up their training. Subaru telling Wilhelm that he's a bit familiar with the sword, and asking if he'd like to warm up to get ready for the battle. Subaru would tell Wilhelm he can go all out, with the two using real blades. Subaru would tell Wilhelm to not worry about if he gets hurt. Subaru would slash down, cutting into Wilhelm's sword with a loud metal clang, both swords rejecting the other's force as the two continue their sparring match. Wilhelm would be even more impressed with this boy's sword technique, feeling the strength behind that blow. Subaru's physical might carrying him, but his sword technique being subpar, right now at least. Regardless of his current performance, Wilhelm could easily tell that Subaru was putting his all behind every strike and blow, thinking that Subaru is going to be improving rather quickly upon his own sword style. Wilhelm would ask Subaru one day after their sparring match, asking Subaru why he wants to learn the sword if he's so physically strong already. Subaru would look up into the cloud-lit sky, thinking about what it meant to be a knight. That stupid thing that he had heard all those knights saying earlier before he had beat the crap out of them. Subaru would see a vision of Reinhardt in his head. Well, first off, if I'm ever gonna have a real fight with that guy, Subaru would pound his other hand to his fist, then I'm definitely gonna be fighting with a sword. It'll be even more embarrassing for him when he fails against me with his own weapon. But aside from that, Subaru would sigh. He'd blush a little actually, scratching his cheek. He promised not to laugh, okay, old man? I just think it'd be cool if I could be an awesome knight that everyone can depend on. For Emillia, Rem, Rom, even Roswaal. Sorry if that's a stupid reason, okay? Subaru would pull himself up, grabbing his sword, before Wilhelm could even say anything. Let's do another match. Eventually, the days would pass, Rem being more concerned about Subaru than ever. She hasn't seen him push himself so far before. But to be honest, this is pretty much nothing compared to the training Skiadrum had him going through, but when he was first learning magic. Rem would be checking up on Subaru frequently, wondering if he's okay, knocking on the door before he goes to bed and seeing if Subaru was really alright. Subaru would nod, telling Rem that he's just fine. That is, as long as everyone else is. Subaru at this point is more so fighting for the sake of everyone rather than himself, burning through on sheer willpower and the power of friendship, just like his predecessors. Anyway, Subaru was getting antsy, hoping for the day to come soon, tomorrow being the leaving day for the subjugation. Rem would sit next to Subaru on a chair waiting for him to fall asleep, brushing his hair and saying that he's doing a really good job, and that he can relax a little bit. I'm here, you know, Rem would say. Subaru would lull off into sleep, And as he did so, Rem would blush a little bit before whispering, "I really do love you." Rem would brush Subaru's hair one last final time, leaning over him, her lips getting closer, her breath on Subaru's face. Rem would stop herself before standing back up and walking out the door, leaving and shutting it behind her. Rem would be covering her face with her hands, thinking that she can't believe she almost did that. Subaru being fast asleep. And the next day would come, with nothing happening. Subaru's time to subjugate the white whale was fast approaching, him and the rest of the Crush camp heading out. As they were leaving, Subaru would look around, making sure he was there. Julius sitting on one of the carts. "Hey, you actually came," Subaru would say. Julius would sigh. "Not like I really wanted to, but if I hadn't, you wouldn't leave me alone, probably." Subaru would slap him on the back. Yeah, it's whatever." Subaru would hop off of Julius's cart, running back over and now hopping on one of the ground dragons with the cart carrying himself, Rem, and Felix. Felix asking why Subaru was not riding with them. Subaru would explain that he'd probably puke his guts out if he did that, remembering his unpleasant trip to the capital in Emilia's carriage. "Just thinking about it makes me feel sick." "But yeah, it's okay so long as my friend here's carrying me. Ain't that right, huh?" Subaru would begin scratching the neck of the ground dragons, the two carrying the cart, with them being particularly fond of him. In this timeline especially, Subaru's affiliation with ground dragons is even stronger. Subaru pretty much able to almost communicate with them without speaking. They're almost like siblings after all, or weird step-cousins. Yeah, anyway, we're not going to talk about that any longer. But, the white whale subjugation will begin, with the entire team heading out, Subaru riding atop the ground dragon, and Rem sitting behind him. As they get closer to the Centiflugal's tree, Subaru would try and remember what the sun looked like back at that time, thinking and closing his eyes, saying that it should be getting pretty close. After a few hours of travel, they'd finally see the caravan of merchants Subaru had talked about, with Crush being impressed that he could have predicted something like that. Subaru would get off of the ground dragon, standing in the middle of the field, making sure that Rem and the others had warned the caravan to get out of the way, many of the merchants fleeing, including Otto, who Subaru would ask to stick around after the fact. Otto would be terrified, but says that he would help evacuate people with his cart if he really says he has to. Subaru would smirk, saying that if he does help, he'll try and get Lord Roswaal to buy all of the oil off of him that he has. "How did you know I had—" "Alright, get on out of here," Subaru would say, slapping him on the back. Otto yelping as he grabs his things and gets the hell out of Dodge. And now, the field was silent. Crush was waiting, sitting and hoping that Subaru hadn't lied about this, and this wasn't some effective ploy to either attack the capital or just mess with Crush's credibility. Subaru would be looking up, wondering what's going on, and just as he says aloud, "Where the hell is that?" Immediately, the howling of some strange creature would cover the land. A thick fog began to cover the field. Crush would yell at the top of her lungs, "Everyone, positions!" Subaru running over to Wilhelm, with them two being the main vanguard. That is, the two of them both deciding to go up and fight that thing themselves. As the whale would descend, beginning to attack the soldiers, Subaru would lunge forward, transforming into shadows, Wilhelm running at an equivalent speed, matching Subaru. As the two run forward while the whale is still on the ground, leaping out of the shadow and Wilhelm jumping to the air, the two would slash into the flesh of the white whale, Subaru using a shadow dragon claw, cutting into the flesh and pulling himself up. Huh? Immediately, Subaru would notice, screaming out to everyone that magic isn't as effective on this thing. Subaru would pull his hand back, seeing barely any damage from his shadow dragon claw, wondering what the hell's going on. Mages from below would be shooting up attacks towards the white whale with it doing barely any damage, the furs on its body negating the magic being sent towards it. "Oh," Subaru would say, "so it's just on the outside, huh?" Subaru would then use magic on his right hand, now pulling it through his left, creating a black sword out of shadows. "Hey, old man!" Wilhelm would turn, the two running towards each other, slashing the flesh of the white whale. Subaru would turn, spinning, as he carved a circle with Wilhelm into the body of the white whale, before Subaru would reach down with one hand, covering himself with power, as he grabs the flesh of the whale and rips it off of its body, the whale howling in pain. "Perfect! Alright, old man, leave the rest to me." Subaru would pull his right fist back as he charges shadows into it. "Shadow Dragon Fist!" Subaru would lunge up into the air before slamming back down to the fleshy pink skin of the white whale, using all of his magic power connected into his fist and slamming the body of it. The whale would actually bend in midair, Rem using alhumas to shoot blades of ice towards its body as it falls towards the ground, crashing into it. Soldiers would charge forward, yelling as they begin carving at the white whale. Crush would be shocked having seen Subaru ground the whale with a single punch. What a monster, she'd be thinking. Looks like you got yourself quite the subordinate, Emillia. Willem be screaming as he slashes, ripping through the body of the whale, saying that he's going to avenge her, thinking of his wife. This monster that took her away from me. Willem would have seen his mind when he was a young swordsman, having battled the young Astrea for the first time and lost. The two of them both being equally skilled with a sword, and him just being outmatched by her power. The one person who truly understood him had been taken away by this beast. The time had finally come to where she could finally rest. Wilhelm slashing and ripping through the creature until ribs and bones were showing. The whale would call out with a slow hum. Suddenly more howls would begin coming into the distance as there would be two more white whales that form. Subaru would look up into the sky, trying to see past the fog using his night vision as a shadow dragon slayer. There he'd see, there's 3 smaller whales and a main one. Subaru would grit his teeth, not realizing this from the first time he encountered the white whale. I'm done with this. I have to go save them. Subaru would decide that he's gonna be a little ambitious with magic power here. I'll slurp some of their shadows later anyway. Subaru would get back to the ground, running over to Crush, telling her to get everyone the hell away from him immediately. At least 100 meters distance. Go, run. I'll bring all of them down and then everyone can come charging back in. This was not in any of the plans they had talked about, but Crush would nod, trusting his instinct and his skill, after having seen it firsthand. She'd yell for everyone to get back and leave it to Subaru. Rem asking him if he'll really be alright. Subaru would turn, a smile crossing his face, his eyes gleaming golden. This is what I was made to do. Taking down huge monsters like this? Piece of cake. Subaru pounded his fist into his other one. These things, after all, are nothing compared to dragons. Once the distance had been cleared, Wilhelm would be the last to leave the vicinity, the other whales now closing in on their pursuers. I have to do this now, Subaru would think. Subaru would charge all of his magical power into the spell, saying that he'll recover on the way to the mansion later. Tighter! Tighter! Subaru would condense his magic even tighter, making it slowly begin to swirl and spin into the form. Come down here, you big fat fish. I'm about to teach you who the real monster is. Shadows began to cover Subaru's entire body as a black darkness would encompass the entire area in a huge sphere. Shadow Dragon King! Penance! A flash of light would cover the entire field, being sucked into darkness, the sun seemingly eclipsed by Subaru's magic power. Crush's mouth would be wide open as a huge suction would begin to pull on everyone. Everyone sliding against the ground, stabbing their blades and hands into the ground to hold from being pulled in. Subaru would hold his hand up, now aiming towards the whale and using a full power of a black hole. All of the whales would begin to get sucked down. The main whale, being heavier, would lose flight first, crashing into the spell, as half of its body and its brains would go exploding across the field, blood splattering everywhere as Subaru eradicated 1.5 of the whales, the large whale now slowly dying from the black hole's impact, and the third whale getting pulled closer towards the ground, ramming into it on its side. Subaru would fall to the ground, whispering that it's all up to you, Wilhelm. Not a second later would Wilhelm come running in at full speed, catching Subaru as he falls to the ground and laying him there, drawing his sword, thanking Subaru for all he's done, for this opportunity, to finally end this once and for all. With one final charge, Wilhelm would scream, his battle cry now reaching everyone on the battlefield, as all of Crush's forces would charge forward using all their strength to kill the last whale. Wilhelm doing most of the damage, slashing and cutting, finally finishing off the menace of the white whale once and for all. Rem would now have Subaru lying on her lap, stroking his hair just as she had the night prior. You really are amazing, she'd be thinking. Everyone would be surrounding Subaru. With the white whale defeated, there was only one last thing to do. Subaru would open his eyes, beginning to munch on everyone's shadows, saying thanks for the magic power, before slurping up and pulling himself off the ground. Julius, are you ready to do that thing I told you about? Julius would nod, the rest of Crush's forces following in Subaru's command, Crush thanking him for his help with the assault on the white whale, saying that there was no way they probably could have even won without him. Subaru would smile, saying it was no problem. And now that's taken care of, Subaru would smirk. There's only one thing left to finish.
I'm coming for you, Petelgeuse.
But in a short recap, Subaru, after dying in one of the loops where he had Rem and Betelgeuse and everything at the mansion happening, would take down the White Whale and would currently have Julius and the rest of the Crush Camp's help in agreement with helping take down the White Whale after he had used about half his magical power and refueled on their shadows and eating some of their magic. Subaru, Julius, and their team of knights and warriors from the Crush Camp are now riding on horseback, making steadfast pace to Master Roswaal's estate to try and find the witch cult before any damage can happen or any of the villagers are killed, or God forbid Emillia is killed herself. Subaru would arrive with Rem at his side, as Subaru, using his memories from his prior runs, would instruct the knights where to go in the forest, explaining where the hidden base of Betelgeuse is, and having them defend the villagers by guarding outside the village. Subaru would instruct Rem to warn Emillia and her sister Ram, saying that he himself, alongside Julius, will go and take out Betelgeuse. Rem would grab Subaru's hand, telling him to be careful. Subaru would nod, telling her that he's got this and have some faith in him. Rem would be still worried, but knowing Subaru being Subaru, she'd let him handle it. After having seen everything he's accomplished so far in all of the past couple of weeks, why wouldn't she? I mean, this guy is pretty powerful. She just watched him like 3 hours ago use a magic attack that was able to suck 3 massive flying whales out of the sky and rip some of its brains out with the power of a black hole. He's not exactly someone that you would typically be worried about. Anyway, she would still wish him good luck as she runs off towards the mansion. Subaru and Julius making a head nod towards each other as they proceed further. Subaru summoning a shadow sword, pulling the shadow through his hand as he creates a blade to match Julius's swordsmanship. The two running through the forest and jumping between the trees as they get closer to the main base that Subaru had told them about on their way here. Back at the mansion, Rem would have told everyone what's going on. And upon hearing how reckless Subaru is being, Emillia would leave, fleeing the mansion to go and help Subaru, thinking that this is her land and her responsibility. She can't just let him fight on his own. Rem would try and stop her to no avail. While Emillia is trying to run to the forest to find Subaru, Ram would attempt to be using her magic to communicate with the animals to see where their master, I guess mistress, Emillia, has gone off to. She would witness as Emillia runs into the clearing, finding Julius and Subaru engaging in combat with the Sin Archbishop of Sloth, Betelgeuse. Subaru would have been using some of his own magic, pairing it with Julius, as he has one of Julius's spirits contracted with him, a dark spirit. Using this, Subaru would be transmitting his vision, his sight of what's going on to Julius, allowing them to both see through the same eyes. This would help Julius tremendously in avoiding the unseen hands, since Subaru is capable of seeing and consuming all shadow magic, as well as being the possessor of Return by Death, which, for some reason which hasn't been explained yet, I don't think, has allowed him to witness the unseen hand and also other abilities of the 7 sins in ReZero. Betelgeuse would turn, seeing the girl he came here to kill, the one who has the same appearance as his mistress, since Emillia has a similar appearance to Satella. As he would lash out, trying to send his arms toward her, Subaru would notice it as he moves at blinding speeds, spreading his arms out in front as he takes the blow for Emillia. As the hands would start hitting Subaru, he would start consuming them, sucking up the darkness into his mouth. Subaru would continue to absorb Betelgeuse's power. This time, something would happen, something that's never happened before. While protecting Emillia, Subaru would feel something strange, as if though he had gained a second heartbeat. At this point, Subaru, while he's digesting the magic from the unseen hands, would feel a burning power deep within him awakening. Scales would begin to form under Subaru's eyes, as his eyes would become a deep gleaming gold with black slitted pupils. This is, finally, Subaru would have obtained it after protecting his dear friend and the person he's promised to help make the queen of this new era in Lagunica. Subaru would access the power of Dragon Force, in the same way that Natsu Dragneel had consumed Etherion and later on the Flame of Rebuke. Using an outside source of power to fuel his Dragon Force, he finally would have accomplished it. Subaru would be absorbing the unseen hands and using it to power himself up into a state that before had been completely unattainable. The true power of the Dragon Force, the mightiest tool of dragon slayers. At this point, with power completely surrounding him, engulfing him in a golden light, Subaru would be moving so fast that Betelgeuse couldn't even react to it, as he snaps the arms of the unseen hands, shattering and cutting through them with ease, using his shadow blade. Almost as if he teleported, he'd move right in front of Betelgeuse, slicing his sword as Betelgeuse's head would roll to the ground, his body falling over as he's killed. Julius would be shocked and amazed at Subaru's suddenly newfound power, feeling his own hairs standing on end. Still sharing senses of Subaru, his vision had increased almost as if though he could see in the dark. His range of vision, everything, just that one sense had increased almost tenfold, and Julius was honestly intimidated. The hair on his neck was standing up from the vibrations in the air from the power that Subaru was emitting. At this point, Subaru would turn, his teeth having grown more fang-like, as he looks over to Julius saying, "There's more. I can sense it. I didn't kill him. His soul escaped to another vessel. Let's go." Subaru, with his enhanced senses from Dragon Force, would easily be able to smell the other locations of the fingers, tracking their magical energy, using his enhanced strength, speed, and all of his stats boosted highly by Dragon Force to find and cut down every last finger. With the last one finally being killed with ease, Betelgeuse would attempt to take over Subaru's body. As he enters Subaru's soul, all that Betelgeuse would see this time is the roar of a ginormous black dragon, consuming his soul whole and finally killing him. With the awakening of Dragon Force finally calming down, Subaru would have been able to defeat Betelgeuse with basically no effort, saving Emillia and, well, I guess everyone because the beasts of the end didn't appear. And also just saving the day. Subaru would feel exhausted, his arm wrapped around Emillia as she helps carry him back, feeling his stamina having been completely eaten away by Dragon Force. Subaru would thank everyone who had come to help him, with the rest of the witch cultists having been wiped out by Crush's forces. And that's where the end of season 1 of ReZero would occur, with the defeat of Betelgeuse and everyone making it back to the mansion alive. So let's keep things going and continue onwards into season 2. After the rest of Crush's forces would leave the mansion, Subaru would once again tell Emillia that he's sorry for the actions that he had committed in the capital, having beat on and defeated all of the knights in the capital for having basically made fun of her and treating her differently at the royal selection. Emillia and Subaru would have this heartfelt talk, with Emillia forgiving Subaru, knowing why he was so angry, and basically telling him that she'd been living with that discrimination her entire life after moving out of Eleanor Forest, where she had been living for 100 years of Puck. After Roswaal had come and taken her from there, and she'd been introduced into this world in Lagunica, she had a lot of getting used to. After this, we have a small time skip where we're going to be covering the events of the ReZero movie, Snow Memories, which is basically this filler movie that you guys might have watched that's really wholesome. I'm just going to include it really quickly because I loved it, and I think that you guys should have a what if abridged version of it. So here we go. Basically, the events of Snow Memories happen during, you guessed it, winter, with Roswaal still at the mansion for some reason, even though at the end of season 1 he's not. Let's clarify. The competition would happen where Ram and Rem would create their ultimate snow creation of a mixed thing between Roswaal and Subaru, and it would be horrifying, with the judges giving it a terrible score out of 10, and that being the end of the movie. Also, we get drunk Emillia and Rem, for those of you who remember, which is wholesome. Meanwhile, back in the plot, after things have calmed down back in the village, and everything's gone back to normal, it would be time for them to go and retrieve Roswaal, who had journeyed into the Sanctuary, a location that is under the Roswaal domain that is completely inhabited by demi-humans, and it's key for Emillia to prove herself here by winning the trust of these demi-humans and showing Roswaal's domain that she is worthy of being his pick for the next successor of the throne. Subaru would have a dark look in his eyes, though, as just a few months ago, the event had happened. After Subaru had cleared out the witch cult that had been attacking Roswaal's mansion, he had basically been wiped out, resting, and Emillia had taken him back inside the mansion. Rem, wanting to do her part, would head back with Crush's forces to meet up with the caravan who had been waiting at the site of the whale's death, the white whale. And just like in the original ReZero, an attack would occur. That being from Regulus Corneus, the Archbishop of Greed.
and lie Batankaitos, the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony. Subaru had, at that time, the moment that he found out what happened to Rem, had tried to end his own life to fix it with return by death. And in every timeline, or well, I should say the last 5 where he's done it, every time he arrives at the battlefield in time, he's still way too wiped out from his use of Dragon Force, because his body's not reset to full strength every time he uses return by death, just to where his save point was, which is right after Betelgeuse's death, and as he's falling unconscious. As he wakes up, he always runs out of the mansion at full speed, using his shadows to teleport him as fast as possible, and he always arrives just in time to fight Regulus. And every time, he loses. This last time, he had just made it in time to see Rem being eaten by Lai. Now knowing who his target was, being the Archbishop of Gluttony, Subaru had sent a shadow dragon roar at him, trying to rip him to shreds, and Regulus had blocked it. That guy's annoying. Every attack that Subaru has used on him, even using a Shadow Dragon King move before being destroyed, has been completely ineffective against Regulus. It's like he's completely immune to everything I throw at him. And as such, Subaru has not died yet. Regulus this time just blowing him away and leaving with a laughter, saying that he's way too weak to be a threat to someone like him, as he wipes the dirt off his clothes. Regulus would have left him there crumpled and bruised, with Emillia showing up later to save him, wondering what had gotten into him, and subsequently finding out what happened to Rem. It's been 2 weeks since then, and Subaru has decided that he's going to hunt down that Sin Archbishop, the one who consumed Rem's memories, and take care of him when he's back at full strength, thinking that there must be some way he can reclaim Rem's memories, realizing after the 3rd attempt that people forget who that Sin had consumed. Meaning that Ram had forgotten Rem's existence. Even her own sister was just gone. Rem was still unconscious, laying in a bed in the mansion. Roswaal was gone, and Frederica had showed up. Frederica Baumann being the replacement for Rem to help maintain the mansion. The former maid in service to Roswaal Mathers. Subaru would flex his hand, telling Emillia that he's definitely coming with her, saying that he's back to full strength, holding his arm up with a smile. Even if that white-haired guy comes back, I think I might be able to handle him this time. In all seriousness though, Subaru would be thinking about it, biting his nail. Even if I could tap into Dragon Force at will, I think that'd still be a hard fight. Maybe I'd even... Nah, I'd definitely win. It's not even that he's that strong, it's just... there's something weird about him. Maybe his movements? I don't know. And before they departed, Petra herself would actually have joined and would be being trained by Frederica to help her maintain the mansion as an apprentice. Subaru would compliment Petra, saying that that's a nice outfit, giving her a thumbs up for the maid dress. This would frustrate Emillia. By this point, after having lived with Subaru for quite a while, Emillia is actually starting to develop feelings for him. With Subaru's kind nature and helpfulness, not to mention his impending power and never give up attitude, Emillia is feeling that shonen protagonist style riz. But in all seriousness, Emillia is starting to develop feelings for Subaru, even if she hasn't realized that yet. Subaru and Emillia prepare for their trip, with Ram deciding to go alongside with them, saying that she can't leave Emillia alone with that dumb Barasu. Now the 3 of them leaving. Subaru would again have to ride on Petrash, being the ground dragon, because like all dragon slayers, Subaru has a crippling motion sickness when in any vehicles, which Ram would find hilarious, and Emillia would be worried about him. Emillia would be wearing the new necklace that Frederica had given to her. Subaru riding in front, and just thinking about how before he had left the mansion, where he had walked into Rem's room and had held her hand for a while, saying that they were heading out. While they're riding in closer to the sanctuary, suddenly the stone around Emilia's neck would glow, Subaru turning as he asks what's wrong, reaching out as Emillia would reach her own hand out, the 2 of them disappearing, Ram crying out where the 2 of them had gone. As our focus switches, we see that Subaru and Emillia have been teleported inside of the graveyard. That of course being the location of the trials by the Witch of Greed. Echidna. Everybody, congratulations for making it this far. You've made it to the last portion of What If Subaru Was a Shadow Dragon Slayer, covering until the end of Season 2.
where today I'll be finishing up the rest of the Everlasting Contract story, with that being Arc 4. Echidna showing great interest in this Dragon Slayer magic. Anyway, we left off in part 9 with Subaru and Emillia being sent to the Sanctuary, more specifically, the Witch's Graveyard. But as of its importance to the story, this is where all of the witches' souls are held. That being the mindscape where Echidna can switch between the other sin witches. Anyway, when Subaru and Emillia are teleported, they would immediately begin their first trial. Emillia and Subaru being sent into their pasts. However, unlike the original Subaru, where he easily passed the first trial, his only real hiccup in his original life being that he wasn't as good as his daddy, with him always feeling like second best and having eventually become a Hikokomori, just a shut-in. That Subaru's past really is nothing compared to what our Dragon Slayer Subaru has experienced. While the original Subaru became a Hikokomori, or a shut-in, after he had decided he gave up on trying to be first, this Subaru had come home one day to find his parents slaughtered, his perfect father and his beautiful and kind mother gone in an instant in his childhood life before Skiadrum took him in. In the original ReZero, Subaru had a talk heart-to-heart with his mom and dad, talking about everything before Subaru realized what he needed to do, with him finishing the trial and forgiving himself and his parents, forgiving him in turn for not coming home, his mom wishing him itarashai as he walks off past the train tracks, back into his ReZero life. But our story's a little different. Subaru would open his eyes, not having a perfect memory of what's going on, as he's about to open the door to his house. Suddenly he'd feel the hairs on his neck stand up as he feels a red around his vision. Immediately he'd open the door, stepping in as he sees his father's body protecting his mom, both of them having been stabbed. The blood pooling on the floor. It was too much. Subaru would feel the need to vomit as he tries going into the next room, with him stumbling over his father's corpse and falling into the blood. As he does so, Subaru's vision would take a third perspective as he sees moments just before his parents' murderer entered into their house and killed both of them. Subaru would be watching horrified as the door opens behind his mom and dad sitting at the breakfast table. Immediately as the door opens, his dad would turn back saying, "Subaru?" And to his own horror, he would see an older version of himself. He killed his parents? The man would have golden eyes just like himself with black hair. However, he was clearly older than the Subaru who had been alive back then, as both of his parents would be horrified, as the man who is almost an identical twin to Subaru would laugh, saying this world is wrong, as he charges forward, pulling out a sword, trying to kill both of them. The man screaming something about how he just wants to go back to Daedalus, tears streaming down both his parents' face as they'd be horrified as their son would murder them. Subaru would scream, "Stop! Stop it!" as the older version of himself would flee out the window. Subaru watches his younger self opening the house and collapsing on the floor of tears as Skiadrum would be flying overhead, eventually finding him. In Subaru's mind, he had killed his parents. This is devastating. Of course, this Subaru doesn't know what's actually going on, with a phenomena occurring in his world of doppelgangers appearing every so often. This being, of course, Daedalus. Daedalus and Earth being two parallel worlds that are directly above and underneath each other in the actual Fairytail lore. The Subaru that he had seen was a parallel version of himself, older, just like how Wendy had an older version of herself in the original Fairytail. But our Subaru has no idea about this. In his mind, he thinks that he killed his parents. Even though the version of himself he had seen clearly couldn't use Shadow Dragon Slayer or any magic at all, considering he came from Daedalus, where the magic power had run out millennia ago. Subaru would fail the trial, with him not coming to accept the past as he opens his eyes, breathing heavily, as Subaru would feel a massive headache, with Echidna and her side of things scoffing, saying she wanted to see the training, with her hoping to have seen Skiadrum training Subaru to see his interesting magic. Subaru would have tears running down his face as he turns, seeing Emillia in her own nightmare world. Subaru would rush over as he then gets on his knees, holding Emillia and beginning to try and shake her awake, saying, Hey, get up!" Subaru would be trying to shake her, and Emillia would eventually open her eyes with tears streaming down them as she sees him. Subaru? Why are you crying?" "Huh?" Subaru would have tears still streaming down his face, with the nightmare that he had seen still shattering him. He quickly wiped his face, accepting that this must be some sort of illusion magic, saying there's no way that actually happened. Subaru would cough, wiping the tears, as he tells Emillia that it's nothing, saying that they were apparently sent here from some teleportation magic, and when he woke up from his dream, he saw her sitting there crying. Subaru would be trying to think back on this dream, but it's like the memory was fading away. What was that again? Why am I crying? Huh? Emillia would also be confused, as both of them then stumble out of the sanctuary, with eventually Rom catching up and saying, what the hell was that? Roswaal also appearing and saying that he had attempted the trial himself, but as you can see, Roswaal would have severe damage all over his body from when he had failed his trial. This is when Garfield would arrive. The golden-haired boy walking up, standing alongside Ryuzu Mayer, a pink-haired elf girl. Ryuzu, Roswaal, Garfield, and, of course, Rom would all be standing nearby, with in front being Subaru and Emillia. After this, Subaru and Emillia would be taken from the sanctuary back to where Roswaal was staying, where all of them would begin healing up from their injuries. Subaru healing a bit faster than everyone else because of his Dragon Slayer nature, and just all of his stats being boosted due to that. Just like how his gate had healed naturally faster back in the royal capital when Felix was treating him, he just heals at like an insane rate, completely different from everyone else in ReZero. Kind of like Natsu and the others from Fairytail. Pardon me. Anyway, Subaru would be approached by Puck while Emillia is sleeping, with Puck asking Subaru to protect her while she's here in the sanctuary, basically asking to support her while she's taking the trial. This will be the day that Puck leaves for a good while, with him not returning until the end of Season 2. After this, we get some similar events, with Subaru in his first run, letting things kind of go smoothly. This having no effect on him, really, because there's no smell of the witch on him, so Garfield isn't suspicious of him as much in the first run. But for the sake of entertainment, let's say that he is. This time smelling the scent of a dragon on him, which would still be off-putting for some reason. Anyway, he would challenge Subaru to a fight, not trusting him, with Subaru this time gladly accepting. Subaru always being down for a challenge in this verse, especially needing to get some steam off after having seen him pull an Itachi, or I guess seen himself pull an Itachi. Subaru would show off his amazing strength, matching Garfield's punches, as Garfield would throw a full power punch with his demi-human strength, easily supposed to be overwhelming a regular human. Subaru would catch the punch with one hand as he smiles, his teeth having a fang-like appearance, both him and Garfield looking to be demi-humans. Garfield would laugh as Subaru picks him up and throws him into a tree, with Garfield jumping back out of it asking if he's really a human. Subaru would laugh, saying of course he's not, as he smiles, saying that he's also a dragon. Subaru would lunge forward as him and Garfield continue exchanging blows, which ends in Garfield coming to respect Subaru for his strength. Similar to how the original Garfield respects Reinhardt and also Subaru himself, calling him boss after the fact. While Emillia is going to be taking the trial again, because Subaru this time failed, he's not even going to be attempting to take it, with him feeling a bad feeling anytime he gets close to the graveyard. Subaru would instead be sent back to the mansion alongside Rom, with them going back to escort the Arlem villagers, just like Emillia had made her deal with Ryuzu in the original timeline. Basically taking the villagers back home so she doesn't have to worry about them while taking the trials. Anyway, Emillia would do this with her trusting Subaru to escort everyone home safely. Subaru would give her a hug, telling her to do her best, as she smiles up at him saying yeah, as she heads back into the graveyard. Subaru would leave alongside Rom, wanting to check up on Rem too while they're back there. As soon as they make it back to the mansion, Subaru holds his hand out, telling everyone to stop, saying there's a strange scent here, as he smells beasts. This is the same smell of mob beasts that he had incurred a few months ago. He would tell Rom to pull her mace out, saying that they should be ready for a fight, as he tells everyone to stay hidden in the forest as he's going to check out the mansion and the village to make sure it's safe before everyone heads back to their houses. Subaru would kick the door down as Frederica would screech, asking what the hell that was as she runs out, seeing Subaru having busted down the front door. Subaru would scream for her to duck as he dives forward, pulling Frederica to the ground with him as he sees a blade cutting through the air and landing into the side of the door he had just kicked down. Subaru would growl, pulling his face up as he says, "It's you!" Elsa Granhirt, the Bowel Hunter. A large wave of flame would rock the building as the guilty load would be set on it, with Elsa having signaled for Melee to start the attack, saying she's not going to be able to hold off this guy and that demon girl for long. Especially since Subaru this time is far more than capable of handling her. Subaru would laugh, saying that he's not going to let her escape like that Reinhardt guy did last time. Subaru would pull his fist back. He uses a Shadow Dragon Claw, slashing at the blade that's been thrown at him again, with him cutting the blade in half, the metal slicing into midair, and landing blade first into the floor. Subaru would use Shadow Step, seeping into shadows. He moves faster than she can react, then jumping out of the shadow of the wall and cutting at her with his nails, trying to get her into a chokehold and basically choke her out. While Subaru and the Bowl Hunter are engaging in domestic violence, the maids of the mansion would try to escape, with Subaru instructing her, Frederica, to find Beatrice, Rem, and Petra and get the hell out of here, with him having smelled Petra working at the mansion from her scent the moment he had opened the door. He would then tell her, while he's fighting off the Bowl Hunter, to let Rom know what's going on, as he then gets back to his fight, basically barely dodging another strike right to his neck from a blade. He'd bite down, chomping onto the knife, as he then spits it away, with him and the Bowl Hunter engaging in hand-to-hand combat, her kicking at him as he blocks it with his arms. Elsa would retrieve her blade, trying to cut Subaru open and see his insides. Ugh. As Subaru would form a blade out of shadow, a black sword, as he cuts her knife, both blades causing sparks to fly in the air, the guilty low making the mansion even hotter as more flames ignite all around the space. Subaru would grit his teeth, knowing that there's more people in here that he needs to save, saying he can't let this go on for too long, as he then throws a kick at Elsa, sending her crashing out the window, deciding to go and find her later, as he turns running up the stairs, trying to find Beatrice and Rem. Subaru, using his Shadow Step, would easily retrieve Rem, throwing her into the shadow and carrying it with him, making this much lighter for him, as he then tries to sense where Beatrice is. Tracing the magic power as he finds it behind a door, opening it as he sees her sitting there inside the library. She would turn, asking if he's that person, with him giving her a "what the hell are you talking about" look. Subaru would sigh, saying there's no time for games right now, as he picks up the drill-haired lolly, with her dropping her book. He quickly pick up the book, saying fine, she can keep it, as they need to get the hell out of there. She'd be screaming, saying she's not leaving no matter what, saying that she'd rather die, unless he's that person. Subaru would turn, saying he doesn't know who the hell that person is, but he is her friend, and he's not going to let her die in some mansion fire. He'd run, jumping out the window, crashing through the glass, as Beatrice would scream, seeing Subaru with a smile on his face as they crash into the bushes below. Subaru would then run on, be carrying an unconscious Rem, the other being Beatrice, as Beatrice would have tears coming down her face, saying this isn't how it's supposed to be, watching as the great library is burning down before her eyes, and she basically can't do anything. Even if she were to release her magic, using shadow magic, Subaru could consume it. And she doesn't have enough magic in other categories to even be a threat to him, so... yeah, Subaru just brute forced the entire mansion plot. Anyway, the mansion burns to the ground. The guilty low would then be killed by Subaru and Frederica, who'd work together alongside Rom. Rom wrapping it up in her chains as Subaru from the top would come down with a sword strike, and Frederica would be holding the guilty low with her claws and fangs in her beast form. The three would manage to kill it. Subaru would turn, seeing Meili, who would give up immediately after seeing the fiercity of the three, but Elsa would have escaped, with Subaru not having killed her in this timeline yet. Meili would be a prisoner of war, with Frederica promising to hold on to her. Petra and Meili talking about everything that had happened in the village, while Subaru would leave, leaving Rem in the care of Frederica as well as the Arnhem villagers, returning back to the sanctuary alongside Rom to find it covered in snow. What the hell is going on? Yeah, Subaru hasn't had the urgency yet to know that Roswaal's fucking with him, so even with Subaru's dragon force and power, no matter what happens here, you guys know what's going to happen. The moment Subaru and Rom enter into the field, he would smell animals. Again, mobbies, but thousands of them. Subaru would feel the hairs on his neck snap, telling Rom that they need to get out of here now, as he turns to run with her, not even attempting to fight. But it's too late because they smell their new food, with the great rabbit appearing and beginning to devour them. Subaru would feel his insides being ravenously hungered on, as he himself would try to fight back using all of his powers and abilities, Shadow Dragon King penance, everything. He'd be slaughtering them, but they'd be producing more of themselves faster than he can kill them, with Subaru and Rom screaming as they're slowly eaten alive. What the? Subaru would puke, realizing that he's back inside the graveyard as he sees Emillia suffering, realizing that he's been sent back in time, or returned by death, because he died. The rabbit had eaten him, and he felt every moment of it, wondering if this is what it felt like to be prey. Subaru would stumble upwards, trying to get over the pain that he still felt throbbing in all of his organs and body as he tries to wake Emillia up, gently touching her forehead and shaking her awake, asking Emillia, Emillia? As Emillia would wake up asking, Subaru? Why are you crying? Subaru looked down, realizing that he had just woken up right after he had apparently taken the first trial, not having memory of him failing it again, because he had actually been revived right into the trial, which he failed again. Subaru would wipe the tears away, saying never mind about him, only having the memories of his last run. He'd pick up Emillia, who can't walk, of her blushing, asking Subaru if she can just put her down, saying she's fine. Subaru would walk out of the graveyard stoically, which would cause Emillia to blush again, asking what's gone into him. Subaru looked down, saying, huh? As he then puts her down in front of the stairs when Garfield, Roswaal, and the rest would appear. Roswaal would be smiling like nothing had happened, but this time we have a key difference. Because Subaru has just died, the smell of the witch is very strong in him, causing Garfield to have zero trust in him, not even challenging him to a fight or willing to accept a duel like that. Instead, ReZero and Garfield would kidnap Subaru while he's sleeping that night, throwing him into a jail cell. Subaru would wake up with him having slept completely through it, not realizing he'd been kidnapped, but because Garfield and ReZero don't realize how powerful Subaru is in this timeline, he easily escapes. They have no reason to believe he's that strong at all, because they never saw him fight Garfield, so Subaru would just hold up a hand as he punches out of the metal gate, bending it with his bare hands as he just walks out like nothing had been keeping him there. However, before Subaru can escape, he'd suddenly fall backwards feeling really tired, as he falls unconscious, having been summoned to a witch's tea party. Echidna would laugh, saying she finally got him this time, saying he must have been mentally exhausted enough to where she could actually manipulate his soul and bring him there, even with that meddler in there. Of course, Subaru doesn't know that she's actually referring to Skiadrum, who's been meddling with Subaru's soul since he had begun training him years ago, to have him resist against soul-type attack magic, and also to prevent him from transforming into a full-blooded dragon from the dragon seed. Subaru would wake up as he then sees himself in a field of green, wondering how the hell he got sent to the Windows XP background. He'd stand up walking into the green as he sees in front of him a small gazebo with a white-haired woman wearing all black. Subaru would walk forward, sitting down as he sees the woman drinking tea. Subaru would smell the tea, saying it smells really good, as he pours himself a cup, asking if he can have some. Echidna would be amused, saying that he'd really trust a drink from a witch so easily. Subaru would laugh, saying that his dad fed him tons of times. Dragons, witches, really they're both about just as scary to normal people, huh? As he takes a sip of his tea. Subaru, as he drinks the tea, would immediately begin gagging as his body rejects the witch's fluids from the tea party. Subaru would feel shadows choking around his neck as he is forced to throw up the tea, saying that was really weird. Echidna would laugh, saying damn, as that dragon seemed to have gotten the better of her. Skiadrum had to input a defense setting into Subaru's soul, preventing him from any action that would restart the dragon seed, which Echidna was trying to do. Echidna was attempting to use the tea from her soul to manipulate inside of Subaru and restart the beginning of the dragon seed, which would start causing him to turn draconic over the next couple of years. Of course, Subaru doesn't know this, so he thinks that this was just a really weird coincidence, saying I guess that he just doesn't like this type of tea, saying it still smells pretty good, wondering what that was about. No matter. It would have been sure interesting to see that, though. Well, I'm sure I'll see it come out eventually. I mean, with that awesome ability of yours, after all. Subaru would look up, saying, huh? As the witch with her innocent eyes would blink, saying, well, you're returned by death, of course. Subaru would feel a chill across his spine, with this being the first person to not have her memories be affected by his return by death ability that he had gained after crossing into this world. Anyway, Subaru's conversation with Echidna would be cut short, as his natural magic resistance to all types of magic would force Echidna's spell to end early, with her being amused and also impressed at the power that Subaru holds inside of himself. Saying that they'll meet again, as Subaru is ejected back into his body, waking up and completely forgetting about the tea party, with Echidna having taken the memory from him. Subaru would punch himself in the head, wondering what that was about as he pulls himself up, seeing Garfield, ReZero, and Emillia arguing, with Emillia demanding to know where Subaru went. Subaru would run out into the forest. He sees Garfield about to attack Emillia, with her having provoked him. As Garfield tries to throw a punch at her, telling her to shut up, Subaru would appear, taking the punch into his face. Emillia would yell out, Subaru, as Subaru then holds up a hand, telling her he's fine. Subaru's golden eyes would meet Garfield's green ones as he says the following words. You can do whatever you want to me. Punch me, kick me, hell, kidnap me and throw me in a dungeon somewhere. But the next time I catch you hurting my friends, Subaru's eyes would turn slit-like. I'll make every single one of those things sound trivial. Subaru would get closer to Garfield, practically whispering to his ear. You got that? Garfield would flinch as Subaru then backs off, with him telling them that they're all friends, right? Saying they're all here to help everyone escape the sanctuary as he turns back, taking Emillia by the hand and walking her back to Roswaal's house, telling her that he just went out for a late night walk. Garfield would gulp, wondering how the hell that human had escaped, and why his instincts felt so terrified when Subaru had been talking to him. It's just some human, right? They're supposed to be weaklings. Anyway, Subaru that night would leave without telling anyone, going to where the Arlen villagers would be kept, saying shh, as he guides them all out of the sanctuary without being seen, telling them that they're heading back to the village and then he'll return to explain everything in the morning, saying that Emillia should be safe here with Roswaal protecting her, not realizing that Roswaal is the problem in this all to begin with, hoping that maybe if he leaves sooner, he can get back before that weird beast attacks the sanctuary. As such, Ram is still in the sanctuary at this time, meaning that she's keeping an eye on Roswaal, who she's in love with. And Subaru would go through another fight with Elsa and Meili, this time having to take on both of them again by himself, with Frederica taking on Meili by herself and him taking on Elsa. Elsa properly being killed in this timeline, thankfully, with a good shadow dragon penance, black hole sucking her into an abyss and crushing her into a little tiny cube of flesh. This time, Subaru, with his pure speed, would run back to the sanctuary, not having to hold up for Rem, using his shadow step, getting there in a matter of like half an hour. He would arrive seeing snow just starting to fall on the sanctuary, as he realizes that someone is using a spell, tracking the magic with his Dragon Slayer senses as he finds Roswaal using his grimoire. Subaru would snatch the book away using his Shadow Dragon magic, asking him, "Hey, Roswaal, what are you doing there?" Roswaal would smirk, saying, "So, you did come back, huh? Well, color me impressed. You know, Emillia went to take the sanctuary test today. She was so nervous because you weren't there when she woke up." Subaru would look down guilty, saying that he had to do some business first, saying that he promises he'll say apologies to Emillia later, saying this was more important, as he then tells Roswaal he'll break his silly book if he doesn't stop that spell. Roswaal would laugh, saying, "Oh, that doesn't sound like you, using something like that as a shield." Subaru would laugh as he throws it to the side, saying, "No," cracking his knuckles, "I've always wanted a good crack at you anyway. I haven't had a good fight between two mages in almost ever." Roswaal would laugh, saying that whoever wins gets to keep that book, as he'd suddenly summon rainbow swirls of all types of magic, blasting everyone except shadow magic at Subaru. Subaru would dodge out of the way using his shadow steps, easily evading most of Roswaal's attacks, as Roswaal's and Subaru's magical battle would begin. This is when Subaru would catch Roswaal by surprise, using Al-Shamak, that being a spell from this world. He hadn't expected that because Subaru strictly has been using Shadow Dragon Slayer magic, which is an attack type. So with him using something like a defensive spell like this, Roswaal had been caught completely off guard as Subaru then knocks him out, doing a quick chop to the neck and knocking him unconscious. Ram would come running out telling Subaru that was unfair, saying that Master Roswaal should have won that fight. Subaru would laugh, saying yeah, as he picks up the book and then tears it to shreds, with Roswaal being unconscious, the snow spell ending, and the Great Rabbit still being alive. However, the magic that Beatrice had stored inside of the Great Library is still inside of her, so they're not totally screwed. That is in the event that the White Rabbit should ever attack Subaru and his friends. Subaru would run to the graveyard, wanting to go and greet Emillia, with her still failing the trial, and Roswaal having already been defeated. Subaru would hear the screams as he runs in, with him taking the trial once again, his memories of the former trials coming back to him as he sees what he's expected. He finds the alternate version of himself having ended his parents, but this time after having overcome so much, Subaru would be able to gleam a little further, seeing the memories of him and Skiadrum together as he realizes that Skiadrum had been the one to save him, saying that he hadn't lost everything after all. We see Subaru watching through his own eyes as he walks to that convenience store looking like a homeless person, as inside the convenience store we would see a beautiful white-haired woman wearing the Lawson outfit. As she says, "What can I get for you today?" We see Echidna wearing the uniform, as Subaru would smirk, saying that looks good on her. Subaru, after realizing that he had found his family with his bonds of his friends here in ReZero, and also with Skiadrum, would have grown past the death of his family, with him having passed the first trial. This is where things get interesting. Subaru's next trial
would take place hundreds of years ago, an unthinkable present. We see a giant black dragon in the sky as Subaru looks around wondering where he is, as he sees a man with pink hair, a white scarf, standing next to someone who looks kind of similar to him with his evil face and long black hair.
Gosh, you got another one in you, buddy?
Shut up, you damn salamander. In front of him, you would see all these dragon slayers working together, attacking this massive black dragon. This being Acnologia. Skiadrum told me about him. He was a legendary dragon that had been taken out by my ancestor. As he's watching the scene unfold before him, someone would tap him on the shoulder as he turns around, scared as he realizes someone can see him. Echidna, you scared? Who the hell are you? Echidna? Can't say that I share that name. Actually, my name's Zareth. I was just wondering what someone like you was peeking into the past for. The past? Oh, I suppose I haven't introduced myself. I'm the Black Wizard, Zareth. It's an honor to meet you, and you are? Oh, Subaru. It's Subaru Natsuki. Subaru, huh? That's a pretty interesting name. Is it after the constellation? How did you know that? Well, it's not like the stars have disappeared in only a few hundred years now, is it, Subaru? When you've lived as long as I do, the stars are one of the few things that keep you company all this time. What are you trying to say? Oh, nothing. Just the ramblings of an old sage. Anyway, the battle we're witnessing here between Acnologia and the Dragon Slayers takes place just after my defeat. After my little brother here, Natsu, failed to let me become a god. You were trying to become a god? Why? Well, that's of course so I could go back and save my younger brother Natsu. Before he died, that is. And make everything back to the way it should be. Oh, that's something you should know. Right now, he doesn't have any dominion over you, since we're in his world. Who's he? Oh yeah, you wouldn't know about that. Well, let's just say, Subaru, that there's someone above me who's already become a god. Though I'm pretty sure we're not his targets. More like a byproduct of something he's been trying to do. A byproduct? What does this have to do with... Enough of that. Anyway, I'll allow someone else to put the pieces together. Well, it's been nice seeing you, Subaru. I have to move on to the next life now. Interesting how we cross paths like this, but Mavis is waiting for me. I'll bid you adieu. Subaru would be forced ejected from the trial, wondering what the hell that was about. Keeping his memories this time as he sees Emillia with her crying. Subaru would wake her up talking to her as he realizes that she's been struggling with the same issue he has, with him now actually keeping his memories of the trial, telling her that her past shouldn't bind her, telling Emillia that she can do this, as he wishes her good luck, saying that she needs to believe in herself like he believes in her. After some power friendship talk, Emillia would re-enter the trial, this time with Echidna being all snotty at her, still pissed that Subaru had somehow escaped outside of the second trial, some magical interference even beyond her and the other witches having interfered. But alas, Emillia would see the past of Eleanor Forest with what happened to her mother and her uncle, with the uncle turning out to be the archbishop of Sloth, Petelgeuse, Geuse turning into that after he had absorbed the power to fight off Regulus and Pandora. Emillia would pass the trial, with her powering through and seeing that she had been the one to cause the destruction of the forest, borrowing Subaru's words that he has faith in her even when she doesn't have faith in herself, saying that she'll find a way to fix everything she's done, to go back and undo the curse she's placed on her friends and family in Eleanor Forest. This could piss Echidna off, saying that it's not enough, saying this isn't fair, with her wanting to keep Subaru there even longer and play with him more. Emillia would pass the second and third trial, the present and unthinkable future, with her seeing things deeply into the future, wondering what this black dragon she sees is. She would see 3 dragons, a black dragon in the sky battling against the holy dragon of Lagunica, and then Subaru? Subaru would scream out Acnologia as he jumps off of the red dragon with a black sword as a golden light covers him, black wings sprouting from his back, as we see Subaru and the future dragon of Lagunica having been revived, fighting Acnologia in the capital city with Reinhardt. Emillia would wake up wondering what that was about, as Subaru would lift her up, spinning her around saying congratulations that she passed the trial, as everyone would go home.
Subaru, Emillia leaving, with Ryuzu having completed her role and deactivating, Garfield would be forced to step outside of the sanctuary, not having taken the trial himself, so he's still a shaken, hollow version of what he would have been in the original, not quite yet having forgiven himself for, in his mind, having been abandoned. Roswaal would be being nursed back to health by Rom, who would have lost fair and square to Subaru, with Subaru having unknowingly made a soul-binding contract with him in their duel. And so, everyone would leave the sanctuary, including the demi-humans, with the purpose of the sanctuary never having been really revealed. Subaru would officially become Emilia's knight at the party, with her knighting him and officially becoming a knight of Lagunica as well. It's not like he couldn't, considering he defeated all of them, so it's not like he lacks the combat skills. So Subaru would be presented with a uniform, with him only taking the robe, saying that most uniforms like that are too stuffy for him. Subaru would kneel before Emillia, saying that he'll protect not just her, but everyone, as the moonlight would come down, with him thinking about how he still has to save Rem, and figure out why he had been summoned to this world to begin with. Wondering about everything he had seen. About Zareth, about Echidna, the witches of sin that he hadn't met in this timeline, might I add. He has not met Satella or any of the other witches. Which, by the way, is just crazy, but because of how this Subaru is, I'm not even surprised. Speaking of which, get it, witches, back at the sanctuary, we would see a stone cracking, as the form of Ryuzu Mayor, the original, would step out, with Echidna having summoned her soul into the body after having gathered enough magic from both Subaru and everyone else, with the sanctuary being broken, its purpose being fulfilled, of reviving the sin of greed. The witch being then let out onto the world as she laughs, with her thinking that that little boy had been able to stop her from seeing the memories inside of Subaru's second trial. That's hilarious. So, that's how it works, huh? As Echidna would begin gathering her strength and forces, looking for the other great mob beasts who have a sacrifice of magical power big enough so that she can summon Acnologia, a force of destruction that would bring about an amount of great knowledge, struggle, and suffering onto the world. If I can summon that dragon, then I'm sure he'll teach me lots of things about his original world, about Dragon Slayer magic, and of course those two, Zareth and Zonk. And that brings us to an end for the series of What If Subaru was a Shadow Dragon Slayer, with Echidna having discovered more secrets about the world and having revived herself back into the world of ReZero. What will she do with her newfound knowledge of both dragons and dragon slayers, with her now wanting to wreak havoc to begin to be even more greedy for more knowledge? Subaru not having met the other witches of sin, how will that affect him? With him not having actually seen Satella or realizing he wants to save her, this story is about to get pretty interesting. So I'll probably be updating it, I will be updating it, when Season 3 drops later this year, with all of the new arc content. But if you guys are excited for it, make sure to let me know in the comment section down below, like, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the art in the background of course, myself. So if you are interested in reading and catching up on the story, and are interested in the overall lore of this channel, you should go and check out my light novel, Zonkyo. The link will be in the About section of this channel. It's on Wattpad, so it's pretty accessible, it's free to read. I'll be adding more chapters very soon once I finish the rest of my video series, that being my full stories like this one. But let's be honest, if you made it this far, you definitely have enough patience for that. So thank you so much for enjoying this story, and I will definitely be getting into more of it, continuing the story of the Shadow Dragon Slayer Subaru, going into Arc 5. So this is more of an end for now type situation, you hear? But thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. The next video that'll be coming out full story-wise will be What If Deku Was the Juggernaut? If you guys are interested in My Hero Academia. If not, the next series that you guys might be interested if you like this more in-depth writing style and a longer story will be What If Naruto Was a Warlock? Full story. But if you're only interested in ReZero content, the next two ReZero what ifs, which are new that I'll be having coming soon, will be What If Subaru Had Great Sage being an intelligence skill from the world of Tensura, or that time I got reincarnated as a slime, which will be guiding Subaru through ReZero and helping him gain skills much easier than he would have in the original ReZero, considering there is no skill system in ReZero like that. Only just blessings. And the second ReZero what if, which is kind of ReZero, kind of a jobless reincarnation video, will be what if Subaru was reincarnated into Mushoku Tensei, or jobless reincarnation, instead of Rudius Greyrat. But enough of that. Once again, thank you all so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Dane!